I've got my. Oh, yes.
I made it.
Great. Can you hear us, Tom? Great.
I just unmuted this.
All right,
Oh.
you will call to order at 6:50 PM.
Sorry, I was having some technical difficulties.
Welcome, everybody. It's not on the agenda, but let's just start with some introductions. So we'll go around and start with us, and then our new member can introduce themselves. Does that sound good? Okay. I am Melody Baumhofer. I'm the co-chair of the Sustainability Board. I've been volunteering with the town now since I think 2016. And my degree is in environmental studies with a focus on law and policy and environmental education. And in my day job, I'm the executive director at the Carousel of Happiness. We can go this way.
I'm John Kane. I am the town administrator and zoning administrator. I've been here for not quite a year yet. I started in July and on July 8th. So
My name's Rich Orman. I'm the co-chair of the SAB. I'm also on the Zero Waste Subcommittee, and I think I've been on this board for a little more than 3 years.
John Thompson, I just got elected to the DDA last week. I own the Mountain Man Outdoor Store. I've been there for 12 years and in town for 13.
Jack Kirby Miller, on SAB, just joined this year. Background environmental studies and chemistry undergrad, business and finance grad school, early career sustainability consulting in the built environment, more recently focused on finance infrastructure.
Aaron Ty, I'm the BOT liaison. I told you what my day job was. Should be here all day. Yeah.
Cass Grady, I'm the sustainability coordinator. I started with the town in October of last year. And my background is really in geological engineering, as well as community development. And I did an AmeriCorps fellowship with the city of Grand Junction right before this. Britt Demeen, community planner. I've been with the town, I think maybe 3 years now, right about 3. Spent a year, about a year in utilities and then 2 years in this role as the community planner. I serve as, I guess, clerk for planning commission, BZA, and then I oversee and help Cass. And then Tom, do you want to do a intro?
Sure. Hi, everybody. Thanks for letting me be here. My name's Tom Wilmuth. We built a house in Nederland about 16 years ago and have been coming to Ned regularly for all that time between there and Nebraska. But we've been spending more and more time in Ned and making it more of a permanent home. So my background is in the legal world. I'm an attorney. I practice in natural resources and environmental law field and practice in the water law arena.
And then Erica, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Sorry, I'm late. Erica Thorley. I've been in Nederland for just over 10 years. I have a grad degree in medical anthropology and one in sustainable and resilient communities. I also have a background as a mountain guide. Spent a little bit of time on the Greenland ice sheet, which really opened my eyes to climate change and got me inspired to even start this work. And I was first on the Sustainability Advisory Board in 2017 and was on for a handful of years and worked in the coordinator role and helped with some of the grants that we've gotten for the few years there, including the first paid position. And I work full-time for the town of Erie for their sustainability team. So excited to be here.
All right, thank you, everyone. The first thing on the agenda is to approve the meeting minutes. Did anyone have any notes on them? I think Jack, you addressed everything that I had.
Yeah, my notes would be procedural, but, no notes on meeting, on minutes. On a related, Cassidy, can you see did my note taker jump into the meeting?
It did, yeah,
Yes.
like immediately. Yeah.
Love it. It's very awkward when I get on meetings and it's just whoever
Mhm.
and the note taker, camera off, not speaking back.
Right.
Right, that should help. All right, so I'm looking for a motion to approve those minutes.
I move to approve the minutes.
Second.
And we'll call vote. Rich,
Yes.
Jack,
Yes.
Ty,
Yes.
Erica,
Yes.
and I'm a yes.
Can I ask a procedural question?
Yes, please.
When we go around and do votes on ministerial things like this, or even, other things, it seems to me that it might be more efficient just to say if there's no objection, deem it passed. Is that permissible, or do we have to go around and get everybody to say yes or no?
That's a good question. I think we started doing a regular name roll call vote when we started having the virtual meetings. So that it was clear that everybody actually answered on the record.
But
But I'm happy to.
yeah, I was gonna say, I've been told, I asked the same question in the PC meeting and Attorney Madison told me it's better to call names. But I will say when I end the meeting, I say all in favor.
Yeah.
Say,
It's the
Yeah.
record piece of it is why for the
Yeah.
minutes, but
Yeah.
you could just, I think you guys have a little bit of flexibility there. You might want to actually like call it voice vote, that would guess, like aye or nay or
It's
whatever.
hard to do that.
that's what we've used to do is all in favor say aye, any opposed say nay.
Okay,
And it was just kind of a group thing.
yeah,
But at COVID, when we went virtual, we did it.
okay.
So
That makes sense.
I'm happy to do it either way. Okay, minutes are approved. Does anybody have a specific preference on that roll calling, how we call a vote as staff members?
I think we should just do it for the record.
Okay. Any other opinions? Before we move on. Now we'll go to subcommittee updates. We'll start with the zero waste subcommittee.
Yeah, so I can do the update this time, but we might have Rich do it in the future. And that's, I think the big update is, Rich will be running the meetings and I'll still be attending and supporting and taking minutes and such. But it's just gonna run a little bit differently. From our last meeting, we learned, that at the Ned transfer station, the compost unit is in place, but it sounds like there's another step they need to do. That will happen in the spring, which it's spring weather out right now, so that might happen soon. But essentially it's about installing walls to hold the wood chips in place for the biofilter. I don't have much context for that, but that's what I was told. And that means that once that's done in the spring, hopefully by early summer, they'll have the compost unit up, but we ask about that every single time we have our meeting. And Mikkel is the Boulder County like liaison, and they always have an update for us. There will be a reuse barn being installed that will be fully enclosed. And that I don't think that they know exactly what materials are gonna be in the reuse barn.
So
Mhm.
I will actually probably be running that.
Oh, great, okay.
And it's mostly gonna be like construction materials.
Okay,
As far as I know at this moment in time, it is gonna be mostly construction, 2x4s,
Mhm.
stuff that's still good. I personally have my limits of what we keep and what we don't keep.
Mhm.
But it will be actual usable, buildable materials.
right.
So,
And the staff at the transfer station will be like screening that right?
Yeah.
Or like people bringing it in.
But because I am staff
Yeah.
there, I'm just on call.
Mhm.
But I have told them that I do want to run that.
Okay, great.
So, yeah,
Awesome.
and we will be screening them. Yes, for sure.
Okay, perfect.
Do you know if the cardboard thing is back?
The compactor?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's back.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's been back for a while. We just had to do it so they could do that platform.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's back running. So
Thanks.
Yeah, Erica, I see your hand up.
Yeah, I was just gonna ask a question for Ty. So, my understanding it was gonna mirror a lot of like the reuse plan for Resource Central down in Boulder. Is that still the plan? And specifically, when materials have sat for a while, do you have any plan to like reach out to them to see if there's interest of them taking materials so we don't just become like a kind of stagnant reuse farm?
no, and that's a good call. It's my personal experience with resource is it's always kind of up in the air. And this is just take this as literally my personal experience, not anything to do with Boulder County. Is that sometimes they're willing to take materials and sometimes they're not. Now I can see taking lumber a pretty okay thing, like because people always need lumber, but when it becomes to like doors and cabinetry and shelving units and stuff like that, they may not be always be open to take it because they might be full of that stuff. But I do like that idea because frankly, that didn't even cross my mind. So thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah, for sure, Ty. And specifically, they're doing weekly pickups throughout other municipalities across Boulder County and maybe even beyond. So they've picked up like thousands of pounds for us in the last year in Erie. And the way that it works is they ask residents to send photos to them and then they say yay or nay. And then I think they do Wednesdays every week. And so if somebody has something that they're willing to take, then they just get on their map and they'll pick it up there on that Wednesday. So it might be worth like just checking in with them to see if they put the transfer station on their route, if there's things that have sat for a while.
You know their general, like as far as like people posting pictures, do you know their turnaround time of responding to that?
I haven't heard any concerns about that. So I think it's reasonable, 24 hours or something like that. Of course, if it's a nicer product, they can be picky depending on what's sitting on their lot. So that, yeah, I saw your eyes. Yeah, I hear you on that one. I'm like, wait, it's perfect. This door is beautiful. Why can't you guys take this? They're like, well, we have 10 others like it. Like, okay.
And I get it, like, I get it. They can't take everything, right? Like, they would be overrun very, very quickly.
When my old landlord demolished her house, it was within a day or two that they got back to her and she had a good back and forth with them going
Good.
for like probably a week or two to get it scheduled and get everything picked up. So
Okay.
they're real responsive.
Okay, and then I also do have a friend that's on their board as well.
Oh, yeah.
So I might be able to
Cool.
bounce that stuff off of him too.
Mm-hmm.
So Melody, that brings up another thing too, and maybe y'all have talked about this, but I had a meeting with them recently and they're doing a demolition audit and it's $350 and people can reach out to them and they'll come in and they'll evaluate what in your demolition plan is reusable and what they're willing to take. And they'll come and pick it up. A lot of it's for the city of Boulder diversion goals, which, 75%, which is pretty darn aggressive. But that could be a cool thing to plug up here too. I don't know if they're willing. It would be good to talk to them about it at least and see what they're willing to do.
Along the same lines of this, but different, Boulder County's hazardous materials management facility does home hazmat pickup for all of Boulder County. So I think it would be especially useful up in Nederland since it is such a far drive for residents down to Boulder County, and it's the only place really that accepts a lot of these hazardous materials.
This is Charm or is this the
This is Boulder County's
Okay.
hazardous materials management facility. It's like HMMF that's near their recycling center.
Okay.
Yes.
Not near the recycling.
I
center
think
has
it's
a resource center.
Yeah, I think it's
Yes, yeah.
isn't it across from the recycling center?
Yeah, it's right across.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's something that we didn't talk about in our subcommittee yet because I just learned about it. But might be good to let residents know about it. Maybe try and do like social media postings, that sort of thing.
I think that would be great, and especially leading up to town cleanup.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, it might be good to add to the permitting page too.
Mhm. And,
So
and,
people
and they're,
have these resources.
and they're doing that now, right? It's not starting soon, it's now.
It's happening now.
Ongoing.
Yeah, I think, yeah, I don't know when they started it, but yeah.
It's good enough.
Hey, just something to add to that. It's really expensive for Shelley to pick up materials. And so she really wants it to be people that are mobility challenged and can't get to the facility. So however that's advertised, we just would want to make sure. And it's really been a pilot program up until now. And she's starting to communicate it more broadly. She's done it in Longmont and Broomfield, I believe, so far. And so we just would want to make sure, like, Meals on Wheels, senior programs, like, this isn't just to make it more convenient for folks. This is for people that like really can't get there.
That's really good to know, because I certainly work at a lot of people's houses where I can spot those hazardous materials that have been paint from the 1970s sitting there, you know, and it's hard for them to get rid of it. So it's really good to know that
Yeah.
I can tell them about that.
Yeah, and that's a really good point, Erica. To like make it specific for people who are mobility challenged. And then like in the same post, letting people know that they can bring their materials to that facility if they're not sure what to do with them. But they're not necessarily mobility challenged.
Would there be ability to have like a drop off spot for smaller things and have her come up
It would
all
be,
at once?
it would be great if we could figure that out with the transfer station.
Yeah,
But like, I'm not gonna put that on them, but we do end up with like fire extinguishers and batteries and televisions.
yeah,
And
cause I have a lot of like code enforcement hoarding situations where it's a similar thing.
I bet you do.
And they don't have the ability to get, yeah, down below.
Mhm. So yeah, if we could-
Pile in my front yard that needs to go to Charm right now. Old vacuums, like. Yeah.
Really, it's just hazardous materials. And I would ask Shelley, she said she can only take up to 50 pounds. That's the limit she can transport. And that could, and then she's also limited in what she can take too, because if it's not inert, and if it happens to get mixed with something, the transportation rules are pretty strict. So I would just ask her.
Do you, would you be able to send me a contact or where can I look for this?
Cass has got it, I'm sure.
I can,
cool.
yeah, because she
Yeah,
presented
that'd be
at
helpful.
our
we got a list too.
meeting list of things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Except, sure, they have that somewhere
Sure.
for the home hazmat program specifically.
Just,
Or
and potentially for the future of.
Probably the facility and the home
both. Okay,
Yeah,
delivery thing.
yeah,
Pickup.
fair. Okay. Yes, I can definitely contact Shelley about that. And let's see. Okay, and then moving to the next one, the LED sign is not installed yet, but will, I believe the place that it will be installed on is the reuse barn. So now they will not install it until that barn is up. Did you hear that as well?
I have not heard that yet.
That's what I was told.
I just, because that barn build got pushed back,
Mm-hmm.
which is not surprising, but
Well, and where is the barn gonna be? Cause
Where-
ideally
where
the sign is at the entrance.
where the styrofoam shed is currently, that's gonna get moved and the
Yeah.
barn's gonna be built there.
Do we feel like people are gonna look right when they pull up and look left to pay and then drive left to get their trash and actually look at the LED
Yeah,
sign
'cause
on
that's-
the right?
That's the dump peak. That's where you get free stuff. Everybody automatically like.
I guess so. We had always talked about it being right there at the left where you pay, because that's where everybody's gonna look. So I'm
It-
curious why that changed.
Well, they'll, Billy will make it happen. He'll make people notice it. He will. He's very good at that kind of thing.
Well, it's not always Billy when I go.
Well, he'll make sure those guys do. You haven't worked with him.
Anyway, that's all.
Okay.
That's my opinion.
Well, and maybe with it being an LED sign, it might just catch people's attention anyway.
Yeah,
Like if
remind-
it's moving.
And this LED, remind me what this LED sign is again.
I believe they got grant funding for it
Uh-huh.
and it can like display videos and pictures and.
So it would display town announcements, it would display, what we can and can't accept. It would display things like trash dump days coming up and
Mhm.
as well as information about like what kinds of plastic, don't bring the plastic film to us. We can't take it. It's gonna
Well,
destroy the machines,
and we-
etc.
Sure, and we can also, for being workers there, be like, look, you guys should really think about putting it here on the main building, for instance.
Yeah.
Cause
I'm just curious why why it was moved from where we were gonna, like, they've gotta have a reason.
So Melody, it's probably, so I put in that grant
Yeah.
and it's the only time ever you will apply for a certain amount of money and then someone will come back and say, oh, we actually want to give you more money than you applied for. And in fact, we don't want you to facilitate it. We want to put it in for you. And Boulder County took responsibility for that. But I think there was a lot of issues with siting and specifically like, where do you put in the post, where the electrical is on the site. So I wouldn't be surprised if part of that is just like the structural issues too, Melody. Because I remember that being a real issue, especially with the wind. So yeah, and then it was really from the Zero Waste Committee to really communicate like timely waste information. So like the cleanup day stuff and, if there's specific issues with contamination with plastic bags or whatever that looks like, I'm sure that's evolved. But I'm guessing that would be a good question for Boulder County to see like what are the advantages of that?
Yeah, and I can ask Mikkel that specifically at our next meeting. They were not present at the last meeting for us to like, have that conversation. And that is pretty much the update I had for zero waste. And then I think we wanted to talk about the C3 Colorado Circular Communities grant opportunity. I don't know if anyone was able to look at the website, but I think it's linked there. But essentially there are 3 different kinds of grants, but one of them is by invitation only. So it's like the biggest one and is more like working directly with C3 on like kind of like entrepreneurial, I don't know how to say that word. Entrepreneurial things. There we go. Okay. The 2 that kind of make sense for us are the mini grants, which are awards up to $50,000. And they would be implemented essentially in the short term, so it's less than 6 months. It's an ongoing application. There is no match required. And I believe you can only apply for that like once a year. The other grant is the impact grant, which is award of between $50,000 to $250,000. And that is typically a project that's no more than 18 months, so a bit longer, more than a year if needed. And then each have their kind of like specific criteria. But in general, it's things that would contribute to a circular economy.
Yeah, and I didn't realize that this was replacing the Forward grant until I read the website a little bit more.
So I think the idea here is just bringing this grant up, seeing if there is an idea for what we could do, bringing it to the BOT and saying, is this something that you would like us to pursue?
Yep.
And then there is some interest from zero waste subcommittee members as well. But we wouldn't like necessarily move forward with that until after the BOT.
So wait, do you all have a plan for this grant to bring to the BOT? Or you
No.
just,
That's what this discussion hopefully will bring, is a beginning of that.
I just had success with this grant for recycling cans, like really nice metal recycling cans, and it was pretty straightforward. The supply chain was the biggest challenge because metal is just so delayed, and there's so much uncertainty with tariffs and things like that. But we had talked in the past about going for funding for like triple bin waste stations around town. So I don't know if that's of interest, but that could be like low hanging fruit, especially for like the 50,000 mini grant.
I like that idea. It's definitely something we've talked about. I think we need to align with DDA on that, because I know they had also talked about that at some point. And I mean, I would like to see, in my hometown, they were all like painted in local art. I would love to see something like that, to where they're pretty and noticeable and not just, you know, the ugly old bear cans. But I do remember that town employees had voiced concerns with hauling compost, having that third bin. So I don't want to overburden them either. Yeah.
We just started hauling compost back to town from the wastewater treatment facility using our dump truck.
Okay.
So I think like, I'm just throwing that out there as an additional piece of information. And that could be free program, it could be anything that you guys want to do with the compost, but.
Yeah, well, and I don't think the concern was so much transporting it as much as public compost is going to be very contaminated. And there's going to be someone have to manage that, either somebody to dig through it or somebody to make that call to throw it out. And do we really have the time for that?
I mean, also, I mean, first of all, we don't really have trash collection by the town right now, so
Yeah.
there would have to be some kind of employee or employees that.
I
do
mean,
that.
Parks, I think, does collect the,
Okay.
what, 3 cans that are in town? There's a handful.
Yeah,
If we're talking triple bag system,
Mm-hmm.
another issue that I see with that is, I think that the percentage of compliance that people have of putting the
Yeah,
right stuff in the
exactly.
right hole is very low.
Yep,
Lot, you know,
it is.
you know, and so are we gonna then ask town personnel to go through and reset? Because that is what they will have to do, is they will have to re-separate out
Or-
the bags.
You could approach it, I mean, it's unfortunate, but with the transfer station, if they can see almost immediately that there's too much of the wrong stuff in the recycle bin, they're like, it's gone.
Yeah.
You know, they may have to take that approach, unfortunately, because otherwise it's a colossal waste of time.
Right.
To dig, and then be like,
I just see them, I just don't see it almost ever being enough.
It isn't. Having personally manned trash stations, I spend half my time digging through trash and getting things back in the right place. So it's not realistic to expect it to ask that way. So that would be my concern with getting 3 bins. But I did hear to actually 2 different tourists while I was sitting on First Street the other day, separate occasions, both looking for trash cans everywhere and being like, oh, there's finally a trash can when they got to the visitor center. So I can see that would be a bonus to have some more cans.
Yeah, Erica, I see your hand up.
Yeah, 2 things. So one, I just had a meeting with Big Belly. Has anybody heard of them?
oh yeah. Remind me what they are.
They're they're smart trash cans. So they actually will monitor how full they are, and then they can like ping you, or you can monitor them to be emptied. They also, I think they consolidate, they're like a compactor. So like really cool for bus stations or bus stops, things like that. And then the other thing about Big Belly is they just started a compost bin. So it also will tell you or like ping them or whenever it needs to be serviced, which is a really cool idea. And they're thinking about doing this like neighborhood wide. So like one neighborhood, one bin could support like 100 to 200 people for their compost collection instead of doing like hauler contracts. which is an interesting thing. And then the other piece is Western has a smart filter now for compost. And so if we're still taking our compost to Western, that may be an interesting conversation to see if they'd be willing to help us filter out our compost. There's challenges with it because it'll ping compostable to go where as trash and it'll pull it out, but it'll keep food waste. So yeah, just I think there's some cool new solutions to think about as far as the compost. Like it's not as black and white as it was even like a year ago.
Especially if we've got grant funds to pay for those expensive bins.
Can the grant funds be used for OpEx? I.e., if we got a regular bin and then had Western do the sorting, so we basically single streamed town trash or public trash. It's in town. It just might be a lower maintenance burden.
Collection, hauling, recycling, composting, yeah, I
Sounds
think
like,
so.
yeah.
Sustainable design, remanufacturing, upcycling, community engagement, distribution, source reduction, reuse, repair, collection, hauling, recycling, composting.
This is
What was the question? Could West pick this up for us?
other than spending, $50,000 on CapEx for like, three bin trash can or a series of 3-bin trash cans. What if we just started sending our stuff down to Western and use the $50,000 to pay for the operating cost of having them sorted?
I don't think they do compost collection in Ned, but it's been a while since I've asked them.
Okay.
Does anybody know? Because that's why we had our own like local compost hauler.
Yeah, I don't remember that they do. I think that what I was told by the Western guys specifically, because I asked for the carousel, was that, and really for train cars next door that we share a dumpster with, was that it was gonna cost more carbon to drive the truck up here than the amount of carbon emissions we were gonna save by composting that small amount of compost.
Jonathan, remind me again where our compost is going.
A1.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
We've brought back some actual compost and it's over at the wastewater treatment facility right now.
Okay.
With like 200 yards or so.
Okay.
That's the wastewater treatment compost?
Yeah, it's the human grade
Right.
consumption concept stuff.
Okay.
But once the compost like unit is up and running, then they'll be making compost up here.
Right.
Yep.
With residential stuff.
Yeah, with residential
Not
stuff.
business side.
Mhm. Right.
And not from the sewage treatment.
Correct.
And that's a good point because we don't want to haul stuff. We want to support the local compost in Bessel.
And that's really what this grant is, circular communities, and that idea, right, is shifting from solely just zero waste into actually a circular economy where things stay closer to where they're made.
Mhm.
I don't know where we're at as far as upgrading the wastewater treatment plan. But maybe in the future, one of these bigger grants is helpful as far as getting our compost to actually be plant grade or whatever. I know there's another step that needs to happen on the compost before it's sellable.
Yeah, but the wastewater piece is interesting and maybe somebody knows more of the recent with that. John, this is probably a question for you, but I mean, you need to test it for PFAS, right? And then it has to have a specific use and you really need to communicate that with any type of use.
Yep.
It's already tested for PFAS and it's heavily tested right now. I don't think that's our main concern. I think it's like the getting to human grade is the problem, but we could definitely have that conversation.
Yeah, I think we were looking at trying to get to forestry grade.
Okay. I'm not knowledgeable enough in the
Yeah.
difference, but I could talk to Andrew and see if he could maybe have a meeting with us and we could talk about what the next steps would be for that.
Mhm.
Okay.
Any other ideas for this grant funding?
Melody, I like the big bellies, even if we just did trash and recycling, because it would really save on staff time. And it could really help with like some of the big events that Nederland may have in the future, has had in the past.
Is it he mostly that does that or someone else?
Yeah, and I think it
Nick
might be
in the
good
park
to talk to the DDA and ProSab potentially, because they both have been having the same conversation a little bit, not about these specific, but we could bring them to those other boards as well. And we have to keep moving on the grant, but I'm sure that it would be.
Well, I think she said it's rolling, right? So I don't think we have to.
Right.
I think we're fine. There's no
Yeah, you can buy
rush.
once
It's
a year.
We were trying to buy them for downtown. That has been a active
Yeah.
project right now, so.
Interesting.
Exactly. So yes, I think before we move further on this, we should talk to DDA and ProSab, you said, because they're looking at park scans.
Melody,
Yeah,
what happened with the Airbnb like waste diversion communication materials?
I couldn't tell you other than I believe that the Airbnbs, when they apply, are given a packet information that includes it.
That's true.
So it's given to them when they apply for their license, sounds like.
And then
And that's annual, right?
That's annual and they're
Yep.
required to keep it in their, like, it's gotta be,
There's certain things that have to go in the B&B, yeah.
it's like typically a booklet or like a bunch of cute little frame things. on-
As well as there's like wildfire preparedness and like animal interaction. There's like some
It's kinda
other
like a
living in the
half,
mountains.
maybe, yeah.
Yeah, things on
Behave.
there. Yeah, exactly. Does that answer your question?
Do that when I go clean their hot tubs.
Yeah, I'm just thinking if we could do like an education and outreach component of this grant. So like ask for cans, but then also, lean into the education piece, especially with the new compost in vessel. I think that could be neat in a way to, again, like that circularity piece.
I think they would definitely want an education component.
Yeah.
When applying anyway. So yeah, really good point.
I just had a little thought of like, eco art around the trash cans that kind of explains like why it's important to recycle, why it's important to compost, as well as looking nice.
Can they be vinyl wrapped, those ones that you're talking about, Erica? Like the ones in Boulder?
Vinyl wrapped. Yeah. Yeah. Some of them, I think the one like downtown Boulder have them. Yeah. And I know that's it's been so hard for them because they stopped composting publicly, right? So now they have like 2 recycling bins versus 1 recycling, 1 compost, and 1 trash. Tom,
Yeah.
You did that, you could put your trails on there.
Go ahead, Tom.
I was just wondering if maybe you could engage the youth of town to do something, some painting or something, and maybe with like through Wild Bear or the school or the community center or something. But it's always nice if you can get some younger people involved, and that gets the parents excited, and it's just a way to kind of get the message out to a different generation and kind of get them thinking about it.
And sorry, I'm getting a little lost with everything we're talking about. We're talking about bringing the youth in to do.
art
The
component.
educational art.
Yeah,
component.
okay, because I'm on the youth council.
Oh, yeah.
Advisory board,
So.
yeah.
I
Talking to them
Yeah, I
could be
could
helpful.
bring that up.
See what
Yeah.
ideas they have.
And the kids that do the art at teens could be a cool.
Yeah. They do some cool
Yeah,
art.
really
you see these, it was really hot, 15, 20 years ago, like in Chicago, the bowls that people would paint and people would bid on them and all this, but it got the community really engaged.
Yeah.
And, if you said, hey, we've got 8, whatever bins, we're gonna have them painted, come up with a concept, and I don't want to call it a competition, but like, you know, a community engagement concept.
Tom,
Yeah.
I love that, and I think C3 would be psyched, especially if we were like, brought to you by this state program, you know, and did some kind of plug, and I think that's a really cool idea.
Love it.
So it sounds like we're probably going with this trash can idea, the art and the youth involvement educational campaign. Okay. So yeah, John's not here, but I figure the next thing to do would be to bring this to the BOT.
Yeah, and it sounds like ProSab and
I would say
yeah,
we bring
we
it to
still
the
have
other boards.
Right.
Like, we
Yeah.
don't have a proposal for the
So we
BOT
could just
yet
bring
until
it
we
to-
have the other board.
Yeah.
Bring it to
I
ProSab,
would-
bring it to-
it would come across to us much better if
If you
brought it
agree.
to the attention, the other boards,
Yep.
and then
And
came
then-
up with a plan.
And I would say probably DDA is first because they're the other ones with funding that are looking at funding this
Yeah.
program. ProSab probably needs grants, but it would more like just to get their buy-in on can design so there's uniformity throughout parks and downtown.
Right, so if there was any matching funds, DDA would provide those. Is
we've
that?
definitely
We
asked
would
for it.
ask. we would ask.
Yeah.
Yeah. we would
They
ask
would
if
give
they
it to
could.
us before the BOT would, because I
Yeah.
think they have more money right now.
Yeah,
Not saying anybody's rich, but.
so we can reach out to Kate and Nikki.
Our match was like, I don't know, just over $2,000 or something for this grant. It's minimal. And then I would recommend bringing like a more fleshed out plan to the other boards with room for changes. But I would do some research on big belly costs. I would do some research on how many that would be, where would we think these should be going, how would we communicate with the schools, as far as this art contest or the youth board, like how would the other boards be involved, like what would be the specific ask of the BOT, when do you want to buy these cans, when would you install them, who's going to install them, how much is the cement going to cost, what, like I would have all that stuff lined out and then bring it to folks and say, hey, we can change this, but this is what we're thinking. And I say that because with grants, like we could do thousands of different things. And if you don't bring a solid idea, you're just going to keep talking about all these great ideas and you're not going to actually execute and have a plan you can bring.
That's
So
fair. I hear you, Erica. I think what I'm worried about is going down the path that the ERA grant took, where there was disconnect and we went too far on some of the planning and didn't consult the BOT soon enough. And so I completely agree, having that like solid plan is going to like make people more comfortable with it, but I also don't know how much we should figure out before getting like buy-in from other boards and then approval from the BOT.
I guess I'd suggest doing enough to draw a picture.
Yeah,
Like, you maybe don't necessarily need to reach out to the company and get a proper quote.
Yeah.
That's probably too far, but like everything available, like do desktop research, put together a basic budget and bullet points on the thing, maybe a 2-pager.
yep, that would make us real happy.
Okay,
But heard that.
yeah,
Yeah,
You
just
don't wanna-
trying to navigate
Yeah.
that.
I think we can get to a good place on that where you have a good structure for that. And then I guess the question would be, is SAB comfortable with that going to the board as a discussion item before you see it again or no? Just so we can keep it moving, or do you want to have eyes on that before?
Does anyone
You
object to
mean-
doing that?
You mean from SAB to DDA to ProSab to BOT?
Well, I was thinking that you're asking, well, the BOT, like, because we're gonna need to look at finances and all those things and getting some, do you want the BOT is
So we
gonna
were
have to
gonna
approve the
talk
grant.
to DDA, I think you were out of the room when we were talking about, DDA is really who is looking at funding trash cans right now, and they also have funding, so I think we would be first asking DDA, are they willing to help do the match for funding for cans? And so I was thinking initial conversation with DDA to figure out if there's any collaboration here. And if we're going to move forward, and if they say, yes, we love collaborating here, then go to ProSab, see if they're also good with the uniformity of trash cans around town. Come back to the SAB, then get an actual proposal that is fully fleshed out. And then at that point, we would go to either the DDA again, if they wanted us to go back to them, or BOT. And then the decision of funding would be made
Is
after
there
that
a
step.
matching requirement, Cass?
No.
Okay, well, I still think the DOT needs to be involved earlier. I think that's a better practice, but if you guys want to take that path, you could take that path. It would be better to make sure that the BOT has, you know, they have, it's the town right away, and it's the town, it will be the town's trash cans. So I think like, all I'm suggesting is it's a good idea to make sure they're on the same page on that and have no suggestions to consider. We could do that as early as the 15th if you wanted to, not necessarily even asking for approval, but you could take the path you took or you suggested as well.
When is the next?
That was what Ty was saying, is that it would be better for us
I
to go
just-
to the other.
Yeah,
board
I just
with
don't
the
wanna
board
see it
BOT.
come back
Back and forth.
a bunch of times.
That's fine too. I think,
I'm not saying it has to be this like beautiful presentation with
Yeah.
high charts.
you just want to make sure everything is
I
functional.
just want it to be functional, so we're like, yeah.
I
okay.
understand. Okay,
Yeah, so again,
I think we need to go to the DDA before we come to that functional plan, but that's just my personal
And-
understanding of the situation.
and I can't speak for all BOT members, but I personally would like that too.
Yeah.
But like I said, other ones, you know, John has a good point, like, bring them in as early as you can. But
Ty,
I
can
mean,
you mention this at the next BOT meeting when you do a sustainability advisory board update, and just say, hey, they're looking at this. You know, if you have strong opinions, reach out, get involved. You know, final plan is still being developed with these other boards, and they'll bring ideas to you soon. Kind of plan.
I will bring that up in my report.
And ask for if there's concerns with that,
Okay,
to save Cass time and my
okay.
Yeah.
her time.
Our next step is reaching out to DDA and working with
Yeah.
them, so if anybody has concerns.
Yeah.
Let us
Okay.
know now.
Happy to write a little summary for you if that helps.
That would be really helpful.
Okay, let me do that for you.
Yes.
Well, I appreciate us having this conversation though, because for grants moving forward, like having kind of a set idea of who to go to in what order is, I think, maybe the trickiest part of
Yep.
navigating it. And we don't want anything to get shut down because someone wasn't included earlier on,
Yep.
that sort of thing.
I know, I'd be worried about going to the BOT and saying, hey, we're gonna buy town all new trash cans, and DDA going like, hey, WTF, we've been working on this for months.
Yes.
So I'd rather not. I don't want them to feel left behind either.
Yeah. Okay, well, I think I have enough information to bring this to the right people.
We'll work on that.
Yeah.
And then reach out to me, let me know if you have any questions putting together anything as far as like a little
Mhm.
pre-application
Mhm.
snippet of information.
I don't want to screw this up for you guys by writing something that doesn't sound as great.
That's why I'm gonna write the summary,
Yes,
and you're gonna
Yep.
talk about
I
it.
was like, oh, love this. Love this.
All right,
I bet we can even get a pie chart in.
and
Do it.
zero waste subcommittee folks, do you feel like that's
I'll say.
an idea that the zero waste subcommittee would get behind, that they're?
Absolutely.
Yeah, they seem pretty open to just like wanting to do something for the grant. So,
Yeah, and maybe they're open to like talking about possible collaborations, like Wild Bear and Teens Inc. If Ty can reach out to the youth advisory board, like.
yeah, and Sam from Wild Bear's on there, so
Okay,
you
yeah.
can talk to her. Yeah. Okay.
All right, anything else on zero waste subcommittee?
I don't think so.
Okay. Energy subcommittee, did you guys meet?
No, because we need you, and
I
so
assumed not.
because we didn't reach
That's
out to
fine.
coordinate it
Oh.
internally.
I just have like a quick update from Partners in Energy.
Great.
Okay, go for it.
Let me pull that up. So we are considering like options for next steps, and that's still kind of in the planning phase. They're getting more data for our 2024 kind of like energy profile, and trying to determine like how much it would cost if we were just to buy RECs. And that's more because we want to use that to put things into perspective for like, it would cost 50K a year. So that's not a great option for us, you know, like it's more for like.
Okay, you're doing the numbers to show how hard it is.
Exactly.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'm okay with that.
Yeah. So anyway, they're working on that. We did discuss potentially, looking into a carbon focused goal instead of just a renewable goal. And I wanted to bring that to all of you to see what the thoughts were there, with just considering reducing our emissions and putting a number on that or percentage on that for like how much we want to reduce, you know, emissions by electrifying more in Nederland. Yeah, I don't know. Does that make sense? Or
I think that what you're saying makes sense, yes. And moving towards a carbon goal is something that's not like, yes, I'd be up for talking about something like that. I think where my mind goes is how hard it has been for us to even track our baseline and any progress on electricity. We already just sample out our GHG inventory from the broader county one. And so we could have no way of actually proving that we've reduced our emissions necessarily. I'd need some more data to show if we could actually look at that and prove it. Because right now we just don't have that data.
I think at this time, I'm ambivalent about thinking about carbon limited to electricity. Like,
Yeah.
that seems great. That's a way of looking at it. It's getting the same thing as adding renewable energy and like 100% renewable goal. It's just, it is likely a little more flexible. Similar to Melody, I'm super daunted by expanding the scope to things beyond electricity. That's,
Natural gas, cars,
Yeah.
everything else, that's a lot.
yeah. I'd be excited to look at that. Not now.
Yeah. Yeah, that's fair. So I think what we talked about doing is potentially having a work session. And we don't need to schedule this now. But potentially having a work session to come up with a recommendation for the BOT on how to move forward with this renewable energy goal. And there are like, you know, a few options that we could do. But Partners in Energy has offered to facilitate that meeting as well. And it could be something that we invite the BOT members to as well. So it's not just SAB bringing it out of the blue. But it could be, you know, part of setting SAB's new goals for next year, because that is a process that needs to happen as well.
Yeah. There's an inconsistency that we need to figure out with regard to 100% renewable energy and how we treat additionality.
Yeah.
And I think work session is a great way to handle that. I'm open to open invites, but I think like having a small, I think it's gonna take some like in-depth discussion that would be really challenging to have in a large group setting.
And, you know, the subcommittee can meet before that.
Yeah.
Kind of work session, and maybe even meet with Partners in Energy to figure out what that work session would look like. With like more SAB members.
Yeah.
Just because planning is can be a very complicated process, and having like, I don't know, having someone facilitate it and keep it on track can really help like actually come up with a plan in the end and with goals that we can, you know, bring to the BOT and have something to show them instead of just like talking a lot about it, but not necessarily making a plan or coming up with like actual steps and strategies.
I suspect we're in violent agreement.
Yeah, so if you look at our goals from, what was it, 2021 to 2023? I don't know, whatever the set was before this. I was very adamant about putting in action steps and how we actually achieved those goals. I was overruled this last time around. We didn't add those in. So just as a note, I'm all about adding in those action steps to our goals of like how we're gonna achieve them.
Okay, so maybe that is something for the energy subcommittee to talk about when we meet next.
Yeah, and the wording around additionality and
Mhm.
how we're gonna address that, I don't know though that we're necessarily looking to do another resolution.
And it doesn't have to be one. It just
Yeah.
has, I think it's more just like figuring out the, like you're saying, the actual steps.
Yeah.
To get there instead of
Yeah.
doing a high, what's the word I'm looking for? Like an overarching goal is the resolution, and then we want the nitty gritty of it.
Yeah, I think let's meet as the subcommittee, figure out this additionality problem,
Yeah.
get that clear, and then the steps we can figure that out, then we can figure out what the steps are to get there.
Yeah.
And
That's also a capstone project. Like that's how we
Yeah.
got all the details last time. And then it also sounds like maybe a pie question too. Like, can they do that work for us as like a additional graduate campaign in that program?
Right. Yeah, and I will say from Pi, they said that additionality is not common and is not best practice, so they didn't have like a set, like,
They have a standard way of doing.
Exactly.
with it. Yeah.
yeah, so it would be something that like would involve more work from, you know, their end if we're asking for that, so.
Okay.
Did we reach out? Has anybody talked to like City of Boulder or Boulder County? Because that's how they were framing it, you know, in 2017.
the meeting minutes from last time, Pi said they would share City of Boulder, City of Denver's
Yeah,
language on this.
Yeah.
that's true. I didn't
That's what
get,
I remember.
I didn't get anything from Denver. I think this is City of Boulder, not Boulder County. So if it's Boulder County that does the additionality, then I will ask them to share that with us, because I did not get that information yet.
And if you
No.
could send.
Yeah.
That'd be great.
That was Dave Hatchimunji, right? Like, because he was our liaison with the county and he would come to these meetings at the time. And I remember him sharing that. I think it was the county.
All right. Anything else on the energy subcommittee? Yeah.
Like 3 months ago, we had a discussion about natural gas and its implications. Here, John, you had mentioned it might be helpful to put together, and I'm sorry if I don't have the word for like some kind of statement on
Mhm.
like how we feel about that as SAB and as a mountain community. I drafted something. I would like to share it with other eyes.
Yeah.
Because it's not ready for, it's straight out of my brain, which is not appropriate for broader. So I guess I'm soliciting folks who I can pass it off to for review. Great, I'm gonna send it your way. Erica, I thought you might be a good person as well, but I'm not gonna volunteer you to do it.
No, I'd love to. And as a quick update, we just had our beneficial electrification draft plan passed last week. in Erie, and I was really surprised with how well it was received. It was a fantastic conversation, but we had an Excel rep there who was ready to like stand behind heat pumps in North Dakota and Minnesota, and just say like the technology is there. So yeah, I'm happy to take a look. But I was thinking about Ned, the technology's there, right? And if there are some like community homes that already are set up on all electric and have been for a while. I know a couple just off the Caribou Road now that are recent, but they don't have like the longevity of, yeah, this is how much we spent for these few years, you know. But that could be a cool thing to put some energy into as well.
Agreed. I think I'll send it to you guys for eyes, and then we can get it to a place where it's worth bringing to the to SAP for more
Cool.
broadly. Great.
All right, and then the scorecard. So I went through and made a bunch of comments. Did other folks look at it, make comments, get into anything?
I didn't receive any comments from anyone.
On the clean one?
On any of them, but yeah, on the clean one. I also, I don't think the first link was working. That might have been an issue with the PDF or something because of the way I edited it. So I sent a link in an email reply.
Oh, yeah.
Did you get it? Okay.
Was Maddie on this with you?
Yeah, but she met with us once and then she left before like we actually did any bigger like edits. Like she was there for the initial conversation.
She was the one who suggested pulling in lead communities language.
So I think this conversation's bigger than like the 20 minutes that we have here.
Yep. Yeah, so first I was trying to understand this new scorecard has been on the agenda like 3 times. So who on SAB has not read the new version yet? We've all read it.
I don't think I've.
You haven't read it.
I'm just looking at it.
Yeah, because I think that might be part of the issue of trying to get some edits in here is just getting others' opinions. And so I guess we're looking for advice on how do we move forward from here. I clearly have some strong opinions and I feel weird being the only one with strong opinions commenting on the new edits. And so I'd like to figure out a way where we can constructively move forward. Like Cass said, we've, got about 20 minutes for it on this session. But I believe there still needs to be some like in-depth discussion about some of these wording changes. So SAB members' thoughts and process of how we move forward with this.
I think we talked about a work session as an option.
Yeah, I think my interest at this point is to time bound it so we can get to something that's reasonable. But happy to do a work session. Also, I haven't seen the comments in it, but I'm happy to, address those if those are gonna get us closer to.
There's several on every page, so we don't really have time to do that, right?
Yeah, no, I don't think that's the time thing.
That might, slowly over time, that might get me closer. I mean, a major theme here is almost a stronger emphasis on resiliency than on sustainability. And I guess I always saw resiliency as one component of sustainability. And for me, that's not so clear with the new edits.
With
Uh,
with the comp plan, I noticed that it was a big shift towards resiliency. And I think that's kind of where it came from, because we saw that the BOT was favoring that idea and going beyond sustainability in that sense. And I think that's why we added a lot more language around resiliency. And because it is a document that we want the BOT to like know about and use, in the sense of like what's in it and what it means, what the score means, and what the recommendation that SAB is making means.
Absolutely, yeah, and I have no problem with resiliency being added in.
Mhm.
I think what makes it more sustainable and or more resilient being the question on the sustainability scorecard is just a little skewed of what makes it more sustainable, knowing that resiliency is a big, important component of sustainability. That's kind of how I was looking at it. So that's just one example of like these different things that I'm reading through, I'm having issues with, I'm reading comments on, just thinking about things. And so I'm happy to step onto that subcommittee in Maddie's position if we feel like that's the best next step. I also don't want to ramrod this just because I'm the one that has some comments here. So I want it to be a group decision of how we move forward.
I really think that there is a need for you guys to have a conversation with the Board of Trustees about the sustainability scorecard, so that you can make sure it's aligned with, like, all the priorities are aligned and they're understanding the language that you're talking about and they understand what you're saying. The process for this scorecard is rather old, and I think it could be updated as well to make sure it's effective and useful for all of the boards. And I think one of the reasons resiliency is the framework of the comprehensive plan is because it basically tries to build a framework similar to the sustainability framework for all of the different aspects of community here, like what all those things are. And I think that was kind of the intention of the original scorecard, because you see the other bodies like the community center, stakeholder group, and other stakeholders throughout the community participating. And I'm wondering if that wouldn't be a good thing to do at this point, is just to discuss that with them, because I don't know, like, if ever, how that resolution works with the board. I think this is a very important thing for them too. But I think we need to talk about when projects are triggered, what projects are triggered, and how projects move between the board and sustainability advisory committee. And I think that that's something that isn't as clear as it could be right now, even though I know we have a resolution that's existed for a long time. And I'm just suggesting it might be a good time to like think about having that kind of conversation.
Yeah, I think that's a separate conversation than this conversation we're having, which is how do we deal with scoring natural gas in the scorecard? How do we include things like heat pumps? How do we make some of the outdated technology updated to make more sense? And that's kind of a simpler discussion than how does the scorecard process work as a whole?
Right, but I also just want to throw in that I think maybe the content of the scorecard also depends on how it's being presented and read by the BOT.
I guess I just want to be clear that it's the sustainability board that uses the scorecard, that fills out the scorecard, that rates the projects. And that we don't necessarily need everything in here to be understood by the BOT, and that the scorecard we have currently is based off of all of those plans that we've had, including up to Envision 2030.
You guys are the experts, they recognize that, but at the same time, they're the ones who triggered the scorecard being used. And so with SAB being an advisory board, it's important that the board is in alignment to those, even if it's on this like high level. And I think you guys dive into the the expert piece of it, but when they're saying, okay, this is a project that's gonna go to SAB, they need to have a reasonable expectation of what is being scored, because that's the only real trigger we have to get the scorecard working. And so that's what I was thinking is like, what's important is it's an important part of the process. I see what you're saying. It doesn't have to be the same.
I just think that's the next step after we do this step that we've been trying to do for several meetings now, which is update some of the outdated language. And then we bring that updated language to the BOT. And it's much clearer of this is what we're doing.
But so
That's
I
that's the way
I just
see it.
want some
Yeah.
clarification that you said the BOT doesn't need to understand everything on here. What do you mean by that?
I mean, they don't have to read that question and then rate that project on a scale from 1 to 4 based on the question. So they don't have to understand the full technical details of what the question might be asking. As far as, is it efficient? Does it hold air? Does it blow out air? Is it, solar panels versus heat pump versus like, they don't have to get in the weeds with all that technical stuff because we do when we
Sure.
go through the scorecard.
Okay,
In the past, how have you presented the scores to the BOT? Like,
They have been in the aim for whoever the project person. So for tips, it was Chris Pelletier, Director of Public Works.
Mhm.
He came to us, he presented at a meeting. We all went back, we scored the project. We came back to a second meeting with Chris. We gave him a score that had like a 2-page or so report. And then he took that to the BOT and his aim for the tips project for final approval.
Okay,
How did you guys do it with, Leia and Ron's project? Cause I was part of the big aim.
Leia
but-
wasn't around when we did Ron's project. That
Oh,
was
okay.
before we had a sustainability quarter. That would have been
Okay.
2018 maybe that we did Ron's project. And we told him, this is an unofficial score. We
Okay.
are not doing an official scorecard for you. We will put what you have through the scorecard and we will give you some recommendations, but we didn't give them like a numbered score.
Okay.
See,
I
that's-
remember that process, Melody. I remember when Ron came in and presented to us, and it was like it's been sustainability's tool to communicate more clearly how a project can be more sustainable.
I think the problem is the resolution specifically says the trigger for the scorecard is BOT direction. And I know that's not exactly how the process has worked, and I think we want to align the process to what works for everyone here. But the BOT needs to initiate that process by the resolution. That's what is supposed to happen. And so that's what I'm saying is that what is happening in practice is not aligned to what the resolution says. And I think it's important because this is an advisory board to the board, and we need to make sure that it's effective. So we don't want something that's inefficient where we have to go to the board and then back to SAB and then back to the board. But at the same time, we do need to make sure that we're following what is intended with that resolution.
John, when was that resolution adopted?
2011.
Oh, that is like that. Yeah, no wonder it doesn't fit. That's ancient.
It's got bodies that don't even exist. And I think we could fix it really quickly. And that's what I was suggesting.
Well, to be fair, there is some issue with town records and I'm pretty sure it has updated. It's just one of those things that fell through the loop. So the thing we have on record is the 2011 resolution. I don't think we were actually going by process of that 2011 resolution anymore. I
But we-
think
Yeah, we were definitely not. There was like no mention of a resolution when I've been part of a scorecard.
I'm uncomfortable with a process that's different than something that's in resolution, and there is no evidence I have that it's ever been updated.
understood. We've been through that
Yeah.
so many times with this town. It's like, it happens.
We did
So
this with the DDA too, because they had they had to update their bylaws, and it wasn't a very
in
onerous
that
process.
2018 process.
Right.
And then I guess they never got approved, but I remember them being approved. So I think it's just not in the minutes, but I think it happened.
Okay.
And that's part of, it's happened before. But anyway, I get what you're saying of right now, what we have on record is that 2011 resolution, and we could absolutely on record update that. I guess, how are other members feeling about going through that process while we're updating the scorecard? I feel like we need to pick one or the other. We either take the old scorecard and we update the process and then we update the language, or we update the language and then we take it to the BOT and we figure out this process. But it's not making sense to me why we do both at the same time.
I would suggest, when did the Sustainable Advisory Board start in NUD?
2014?
So the scorecard predates the Sustainable Advisory Board, so that's part of the problem.
No, 2008.
2009.
And then we had the Sustainability Action Plan in 2014.
Okay, that makes sense. So I would suggest updating a resolution right now. I would suggest that we make the edits to the scorecard, we get a draft of the resolution, and we edit that for what the sustainability board wants. We track all the edits, we bring that to the board of trustees, and then they suggest like, oh, this doesn't work, this doesn't work. And then the reality is the town attorney is going to get a look at it and change everything anyways. So at least there's like some process and buy-in for both groups, because the scorecard really has been the Sustainability Advisory Board's tool.
Yeah, I think where it's, so the resolution is actually the Nederland planning process resolution that includes a lot more than just the process for the scorecard. Are we okay as the SAB taking a look at that whole resolution, or do we only focus on that scorecard piece and how the scorecard is invoked?
I think that's a question for our community planner and town administrator. Like, what makes sense logistically for you all?
Well, my gut says it wouldn't be a terrible idea to have you are supposed to have a work session with the board anyway. That's something that I think that's not happened recently, is my understanding. I think it would be very helpful to have at least like an information or a discussion item on the agenda where we say, hey, this is the scorecard. We've been doing all this work to update this, and we're just trying to make sure, you know, like we're trying to make sure this process is as effective and efficient as possible. And then get some direction from the board about what they may want to see or how they might want that to work. And I'm thinking that in terms of efficiency, that way you have some like information from them too about what they might want to see in the scorecard or what they want it to apply to, if it's, or how they want it triggered. Because I think what you suggest would be faster if it was like the planner or whomever triggers the process into the scorecard. And so I think that that's the language that we really need to talk about, and then we can update, and then the planning process can take longer. But if you at least have some guidelines for what they're thinking on the scorecard, you guys can, it'll help with the direction, I think, of like where that needs to be.
Yeah, well, and the current draft of the scorecard we have is not presentable. So we'd have to present the old scorecard to them then in that point.
And Ty, like, how much is BOT thinking about the scorecard? Like, is the BOT thinking about this?
I don't think so, but that's fine.
Well, you know, again, we knew, taking a lot of this in, I haven't come across an instance where we have brought up the scorecard.
My concern was at the last BOT meeting, Chris Larson said it used to be a thing. And I was like, no, it is still a thing.
Yeah. I think it's because of that trigger language in the resolution.
Yep.
And where go ahead, Erica.
No, Cass, go for it.
I was just gonna say where I see the like two aspects that you're talking about crossing is how we know when it should be triggered, because it depends on like what you're trying to score. Are you trying to score a plan that they have laid out? And at what point in that plan are they at? Are they at the point where they could just start building tomorrow? Then they're not going to change anything if you give them a recommendation, but also how are you supposed to score it if you don't have all the information? So I think deciding when that trigger happens is something that is really important to know what you're going to include in the scorecard itself.
Yeah, because essentially these come most likely to me. And I like if I brought you an SRU, for instance, like teens, there was an idea, there was a site plan, there was some stuff mentioned, but there's not building plans. And when they're at building plans are ready to go. They're being submitted through Safe Built for review and JVA engineer. So it would be helpful.
Yeah, and it has to be at the
Figuring
right
that
place,
out.
because once something reaches the point where it is allowed to be permitted, it must be permitted. There's an obligation to issue permit if it's met all requirements. And so I think you had mentioned like in a development agreement or something or lease
The
or
lease,
something.
the land lease.
That could be a
where we
way
had talked about
to-
putting it.
Yeah, so I think there's some things, but it's just practically and legally what we have to do to build that process in.
Yeah.
So are we feeling then, we pause on edits, we pause on the subcommittee, we go to the BOT, and then after we get more clear on that and get feedback from them, then we reform the subcommittee and
Yeah.
meet again?
I think we don't bring the scorecard itself to the BOT. We go to the BOT and ask to clarify, how is this used? And then we use that to inform what does, depending on how this is gonna be used, when it's gonna be triggered, that determines what the document is.
Yes, we do need to show them the scorecard because it sounds like not everybody has like the most context for it either.
Okay,
But
It might almost be helpful, and I can help find these in the drive, to show them a filled out score project.
Yeah,
that's
For a
good.
project that was completed, like the tips one, like if we can find all the tip
I
stuff,
think I find that.
get that
Yeah.
like 2-page report that even Chris had, that was like, this is how it's used, this is what we did with it.
Yeah.
Even so, even more so than a blank one.
I should be able to pull that from Chris's. Chris has a big file on our server. That I could
Okay.
get that.
So that would
You
be,
can keep it fairly high level, like the detail stuff, I think is really, like you said, that's really purview of SAB.
Mhm.
But just to make sure that the process is functional, I think would go a long way to making it as effective as possible.
And educating them probably, because there's a lot of new members
yeah,
that
There may-
haven't been through
There may
that.
be an opportunity to build a voluntary process in as well, maybe, like maybe we could look at how that might work
that
for
could be,
projects that we can't necessarily trigger.
yeah, oh, I was thinking about a
Yeah.
different kind of volunteer.
I would love to,
Generally, like some of what we're talking about, right, is if you're doing the scorecard before you do a permit, that's too late. And if you do it like when you just have a sketch, that's 50% too early.
yep,
And, you know, if you look at precedents like LEED, they have multiple reviews throughout the design process and construction process. I'm not saying we should do all of those, but there is like, people doing projects trying to make them more sustainable, they learn every time they go through the scorecard, and that's what affects design typically. So I don't know.
Yeah, and so when Teens Inc. came with the SRU, again, there was no guarantee that that quote unquote site plan was actually gonna be the actual design, and so it wasn't time for us to do a scorecard then. And I know this did happen, that's fine, but what I remember talking to Miranda about was, okay, well, so then in their lease requirements, we say their building has to get a score on the scorecard of 2.0 or higher. Or something, because that's where we have control over a private entity that's building on our land, right? Whereas with Ron Mitchell, it's his land. There's no way for us to really stop him with a scorecard. Doesn't matter what score he gets on his project, it's his land, as long as it follows code, he can do it.
The lease agreement came before even like a schematic design for the building. It was like the land.
Yeah, but
Yes,
there are.
Yeah, they have to go through the process during design.
Yeah, and there's specific, yeah, but that's helpful to know, cause like even staff turnover, like that was never brought to me by Miranda.
Yep.
And so I think that is helpful, especially on like town-owned parcels
Yeah, we
Yeah.
just we need to like,
components.
just make sure that the process has a trigger for staff is what needs to happen.
Yeah,
And then we can help make sure that we coordinate to that piece, but by the time the board knows about it, that's like what the issue is gonna be, is it's gonna be too late.
Yep.
And the discretionary piece, like there is going to be, I'm just being honest, the board is gonna keep their discretion. And I think that that's a good thing. But if we can work together to make sure that the process is clear so that they know, they have an expectation of what process, that's their direction to staff is, we will take these projects through this process.
Yeah.
I think it will make it so that everything is just a tiny bit, more efficient.
and clear, yeah.
Well, and I think, this process is, like I was saying, this process is much larger than just the scorecard too, because there's other times where SAB should be consulted, but we're not gonna go through a full scorecard on something.
Mhm.
Right.
But like the animal ordinance.
Yes.
When they redid that, we were consulted, and that kind of stuff is the NPP, and that's what that MPP resolution was getting at, more than just the scorecard, but how all of these different boards play off of each other and advise one another.
I guess from my, and would it make sense for me to say like, these are code changes I might be bringing up to PC? Is SAB interested in this being like, I don't know, an agenda item or
Like we have the building
discussion?
that's gonna get updated.
Well, yeah, that definitely
We've,
needs to
we've
come.
always done that.
Yeah. And that will, we're just doing a kickoff meeting to figure out what that
The.
looks like.
IECP.
But yeah, I think that's
Helpful.
helpful for me.
Yeah.
What you guys are interested in, and it could just be along since I'm, attending the meetings now, like, hey, these are some things we're talking about. Are you guys interested in me bringing it to you next meeting or?
Yeah.
And discussing it further, cause that's definitely gonna happen this year.
Code updates.
But yeah, building code updates has already, we're going for, 2024 building code, which is, there's. Essentially the pricing went up for 2021 and then it's gone down a little bit for 2024. And there's some like cool additions of like, you have to have the infrastructure for an EV charger at your house, which may not be cool for some people. They may not love that extra cost, but it's still the opportunity to do it. A lot of, energy components to 2024.
I remember at one time we were talking about redoing the code as far as like definitions of housing styles. I don't know if that's the right word, but like,
Yes.
single family home, tiny home, all those definitions. Have we
Yep.
worked on that at all?
Yeah, so, and again, that's like loss of translation of what should come here. But yeah, when we did the housing study, that was done really heavily, in a work session with PC and some board members showed up. So we do have definitions, but I could definitely bring that of like, hey, here's what's changed.
Yeah.
So you guys know,
Yeah.
cause there's even issues that have come from that now I'm finding and I'm like, oh my goodness.
There's
So yeah, I'd be happy to bring those updates.
Yeah.
And in the future, it's helpful to know, like, if you guys are definitely interested in that stuff, I can just bring it forward as the discussions are happening, or like the work session, invite SAB, things like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes total sense.
If I could just make a plug real quick. So I am hearing a lot of back and forth and really cool ideas and I'd like some ahas. But I think, and again, please correct me if you all do not agree, but I see the scorecard as more of a process. And it's really powerful in spaces that are not black and white. So like 2024 International Energy Conservation Code to me is very much black and white, right? Like that will be the minimum for building in Nederland. But like the project with the teen center, that was a project that, had some more gray area. And I think the scorecard can really lend support to that. I would also plug that any community developer or large project that wants sustainability feedback or feels like they are in the gray space and they want more feedback from the SAB board, that's really appropriate. But it isn't something that like a standard project needs to go through, right? Because they're going to operate within this code and that is really clear. Here's what they're allowed to do. Here's what they can't. I do think like bringing the 2024 IECC and strengthening amendments to SAB, like 100%, right? Because the BOT could say, oh, that's not a priority. We don't want to go that way. And SAB could say, well, here's why it's really important for all X, Y, and Z and all these goals we've already established. So I don't know if that helps at all, but it's a process and it's basically really helpful for the developer to get into the weeds with here's the things that this board really values and here's some opportunities where we can improve and make our project more desirable for the town per this lens of this board. I don't know if that's helpful and that clarifies, but I'm just hearing some asks for like very specific direction, and I think it's that gray space. And anytime you feel like there's gray space, it can be helpful.
Yeah, no, that's super helpful for me. I mean, I can think of projects that will probably be coming down the pipeline that it makes a lot of sense to use the scorecard in this situation, or to ask, yeah, are you, you aren't required, but are you interested? Because you'd be surprised. There are probably people who are, or
Yeah.
bigger projects that are.
Yeah, so pretty much any construction on town or that
Yes.
town is in charge of has always gone through a scorecard.
Mhm.
And that's kind of the easiest category to separate out. I'd be like, yeah, duh. And I think after that is where we start to get into that gray area. And I would really like to see maybe clear categories of like this is what we do when it's a private landowner coming to us, just requesting one, like Ron Mitchell.
Mhm.
This is what we do when it's a town project run by town employees, you know, and this is what we do when it's kind of that mix and there's a SRU involved or a lease involved or whatever that looks like.
Makes sense.
I think this is a good conversation. I think having it with them will be great. And I think the big thing to remember is they're gonna want to support their advisory board and also maintain their decision-making authority. I think those two things we can accomplish with the conversation you guys just had. So I really appreciate you guys engaging in that and keeping an open mind about how that could work and how it could support your work too.
So with this aim, is it SAB bringing it to the BOT? Is it?
I personally, because I know the process and Cass doesn't, would prefer to bring it.
Staff bring things, but I think that we could have something from SAP if you guys want to do that.
I know, she just has never been through the process. She doesn't know it.
It's not a very long document, but I think like if you guys want to draft something and have SAP or have Cass put like a cover sheet on it, that would be fine.
I think we can, yeah, I think we can do like similar to, since I've been here, what we've done when there's something that SAB like has more knowledge on, and that would be like having you attend and me like presenting it in
actually
terms of just the
I've done that twice now and I've attended a meeting being asked to, and I've never been called on for questions.
I think I'll be writing the same.
So,
I'll probably write the same and
Okay.
I'll present it, but I'm gonna also be presenting the board's interest as well. So I think we could work together on that and you could have a piece and then you'd be a presenter. So you're not like in a public comment capacity or anything.
that would be really helpful,
Okay,
because like I said, I've been asked of me before and hasn't happened the last 2 times I've gone. So if I'm gonna be there as a presenter, I'd like that to be.
the board has some discretion there, but we will make sure that that happens.
So just as a point of clarification. We have brought stuff to the BOT before separately from the sustainability coordinator. So are we getting direction that we should not do that anymore? Because we have brought stuff as set.
Yeah, well, it can be attached to staff aim from staff. Staff will have an aim with it. And it could be a part of that. That's fine, but there will be a staff representative on aims.
Okay, we've put together PowerPoints, we've presented to the BOT, we've put together the aims. So I just,
I think
that's
yeah.
new to me.
I was gonna say, I think he's saying it like, this is how I think of it anyways, from like a consultant perspective.
Yeah.
Like SC Group, I still presented the aim and kind of introduced them and gave like a summary, but they
Okay.
ultimately made the presentation. And so it's just so
Okay.
like, there's a staff support in the site of like overseeing, knowing what's gonna be presented and maybe be able to add more. Like just like a quick summary or introduction piece component to it. I don't know if that's what you mean,
It's
but
what staff support is for the advisory boards. We're gonna have staff representation on those things, and I don't mind if the SAB is doing the heavy lifting, but there would be a staff representation.
Okay. I would like to see what we're sending to the BOT and what's good on the BOT agenda before it officially does that. And please reach out to me to meet with me so we can put that
Well, do you want to,
together.
does SAB want to draft something about this? Because that's fine. It's just,
Melody, I would ask that anything from the SAB that goes to on an aim for the BOT should go to the board as well. So everybody can make sure that it has the general consensus of what the board was deciding. So I think that makes sense.
So are we asking staff then to bring the aim back to us at our next board meeting before going to the BOT?
Gosh, that slows things down. Can we just look at it and do like a reply just to Cass?
well, John's gonna be ready.
I would reply, yeah, I mean, you can do that.
yeah,
but
I'm gonna
to
be
John.
presenting an aim to the board about the process as I understand it and how I think things should happen. And I'm happy to work with that, but there's going to be a bigger piece that's more, that's oriented towards the board. And then there's the SAB position as well, just to make sure that you guys are representing what you're looking for. And what we did when we did with this DDA is the DDA submitted an aim, and then I also submitted an aim. And they were both considered, and then Kate did talk through the aim as well. And so I think in this case, that might not be a terrible process, but I do think like there will be, one of the things we need to talk about is how the board decision-making process works, because they're the elected officials of the town that appoints the SAB, and that is important. And I am going to recommend that the board keep that structure in place. Now, that being said, they have the ability to delegate their authority, and I think they want to delegate their authority in the way that we have, but we need to like make sure it's formalized in a way that keeps the process consistent and transparent and like aligned to best practices. And so that will be my recommendation. And I think like in terms of what that looks like, as you said, you have been working with it longer. And so I think you could talk to that and speak to like the process that you're looking for. And I think that that could be something that works. I do think, you're a board and not, you act as a board, that's where your power comes from. And I think that's important to preserve. I don't know if you guys how you want to address that. And I think that's up to you and how you would want to do it. And I'm happy to share my aim too. That's totally fine. And we could work together to draft one name if that's easier. I'm happy to do that too.
The way that I'm thinking about it is that we as the sustainability board can bring input on how and when the scorecard is used and how and when the sustainability board is consulted. I'm not so sure we can speak to how and when other boards are consulted. I don't want to separate out the process. I'm just feeling like I need to spend time with one or two other SAB members to put together a presentation of this is what the scorecard is, this is when we've used it in the past, and this is what that's looked like before being ready to go to a BOT meeting.
Well, what if we put that first? And then I can write an aim and give that to you guys to review. And then when you're ready, we can just do it. And then we'll agree that we're going to work together and kind of bring something forward together between staff and the staff reports. The staff report is aligned. I just have to make sure that the BOT interests are also represented. That's all I'm trying to communicate.
John, I might have missed this, but I'm feeling like I'm missing a layer with this BOT concern piece that I don't fully understand. Like, where is the controversy coming up with the scorecard for the BOT? Or is it staff?
It's when the process is triggered that we need to look at. And right now, it's a resolution which is non-binding. And it says that the Board of Trustees has the discretion to decide whether or not a project is forwarded to SAB. In actual reality, what's happened, that isn't the process that's been followed. And I think over time, what's happened is the process has become degraded, where it's maybe is less utilized than it could be and should be. And so what I'm suggesting is that we talk about that. But what the board needs to do is have a conversation. There's no controversy, but the board needs to be able to talk about that and say, hey, the Sustainability Advisory Board is our advisory board. They're the people we appoint to do this work, which is very important to us, but which we are not the experts in. And so they need to be able to have a piece of that conversation and say, you are the experts and we expect you to have a broader range of information than we do. But at the same time, we establish strategic goals and we establish the comprehensive plan. These are aligned to public engagement process that we've had. And we want to make sure that your work is aligned to their work. And that way, I think what would happen is we'd improve the process so that, for instance, like either Ty or myself, or Britt or whatever, when a project comes or we're looking at a grant or whatever, it's easier to trigger the process, because right now it's discretionary, and that's okay, but also like maybe there's a way that the board, I think the board needs to be able to talk about this too and have alternatives presented to them about what this might look like so that they can say, hey, this is what we're really looking for as we move forward. And it doesn't mean it has to be their way or the highway. It just means.
Well, and I don't think it's a controversy, but I do think that part of this got brought up because I was pretty strongly concerned that the Teens Inc. project that we had talked about going through a scorecard was not getting brought up to go through a scorecard. And that there were some other decisions that were going to BOT meetings that I didn't know BOT was discussing. And if I had known BOT was discussing it, I would have loved for this board to make a recommendation before it went to the BOT. And so I think there's just some things falling through the cracks with staff changeover and not having everything in writing of how things were getting done. To where that process is kind of fallen behind. So not necessarily a controversy, but it's not working the way it's supposed to be right now.
What it is, resolution says, but it's just not what has practically happened in the past. And that's what.
Except for the BOT doesn't even think it exists. So they don't think it's a thing that they pull up to bring
They
in.
definitely all know it exists. I think that I think what needs to happen is we need to talk about how the process is initiated. That's where the situation exists. And it's also what projects, because it says in the resolution, it says projects and events. And I think it's fairly clear why TIPS went through, but projects isn't a very well-defined term in that case. And like, we need to make sure that that's defined. And as you guys have mentioned, we need to have a process for town-owned properties, because as you said, that
Can you all hear us? I know you can tell my.
Can you hear us? Can you hear us now?
Yeah, we can hear you now. Yeah.
Okay. Sorry about that.
No worries. Hey, you all probably solved all this while we were offline there for a second, but so I'm hearing that it's really important that SAB propose what their ideal is. And I'm really hearing that it's important that SAB brings this historical context and really presents that. I think staff absolutely that as well, but it feels like this is really a SAB tool that was really developed, by this group, and it is something that like the community has really come and asked for. So I just want to advocate for that. I think it is important that we have an opportunity to really communicate directly to the BOT what's best for SAB.
that's not even that question. I think that that's what we're saying, is that's what needs to happen. But this is a board of trustees process that is entrusted to SAB. That's the important thing here, is the board of trustees appoints you to fulfill the expressed desires of the community, but the desires of the community are also expressed in the strategic plan. And so I think that that's where what I'm saying is we need to make sure that the board has an opportunity to discuss this as well. And when you say that we're just going to present the plan to them, I think what it will do, they will consider it. And you have people who are like working in sustainability on the board too, and it's super important to them as well. And I think everybody recognizes the legacy of this and how important this is to Nederland. But if the board of trustees doesn't have the ability to say, hey, this is a process that's 15 years old. Let's talk about it. What are the triggers? How do we make it stronger? How do we work with you so that we're uplifting you and removing barriers? I don't think that that conversation is going to be as effective as it could be, because it's going to become more difficult to get consensus with them to like say, this is the process we should go through. And what we need is direction that says, hey, this is what we agree. You guys tell us, you're the experts. This is how it should work. What you've just said, I think that's what should happen. But I think that the right first step is to have that conversation and maybe even present what you want if that's what you want to do there. But I'm just trying to make sure that you recognize that the Board of Trustees needs to be able to weigh in on this decision because they are the elected body of Nederland.
Yeah, and I guess, John, like Billy has engaged with this process. Chris Larson has engaged with this process. Like, I think some folks will be more familiar than others. And I don't disagree. I think the conversation is really important, but I think it will be more productive if SAB comes and says, hey, here's where we have questions. Here's where we have more confidence in what we think would be, good to continue, or where we think it should be updated and improved. I think it doesn't have to be a blank slate. I think it could come with some suggestions and some like recommendations.
Yeah, I'm not arguing on that point. I'm just saying that in terms of what needs to happen here, is the board needs to be able to discuss how they want their advisory board to operate as well. And I think that can be part of this conversation.
I almost feel like it makes more sense for us to have a work session with the BOT before putting this on a public agenda. Because I don't like how confusing all of this is, how many different people are on different pages about the process. And I'd like us to be in a little bit more uniform understanding of what's going on before we present this to the BOT with all this confusion.
I think one of the biggest things is that planning process and having a resolution that doesn't align with what we want. And I think that's true, is what we all want going forward. And so is there a way in which that is going to be addressed by the BOT, the
Well,
planning process?
What could happen here, the other way, the BOT at the end of the day has the say. They're
Yeah.
the ones who get to decide. But what we could do, if you give us a moment, we could present some, either you guys you could talk about this at a meeting, you could do a work group, or, I mean, conversely, staff could also look at just the resolution, not necessarily the process or anything else, but like some ideas for language based on direction you give us. We can bring that back to you, or however you guys want to do that, but just some ideas about how kind of what you've been talking about could be implemented in process. And then you could either talk about that at your next meeting or consensus through email, or however you wanted to do it. That would be one way to do it. And I'm 100% okay with that. I'm not trying to say that you shouldn't do that. I just think that in this particular case, there's land use implications, there's potential other legal implications, and we need to make sure that it works in a way where it's seamless and like everyone understands like what the triggers are. So you don't have a conversation like you had at the BOT the other night. It's just like, this is what we do, this is how it works, and this is how it implements into our other ordinances. We can create any ordinance we want, or if this wants to say a resolution, it can do that too. We just need to go through the legal review, make sure that it lines up in all the right places and that everything is functional, and that we, empower you and then retain the ultimate authority of the board. I think if we can do that, I don't actually think we're that far apart on what we're saying. I think it's more a matter of just figuring out how to make that resolution do what you're asking it to do, or if we turn it into an ordinance.
The resolution in particular about the scorecard, or the resolution as a whole? Because again, in my mind, that's a lot more than is SAB's purview. SAB's purview is the scorecard and our input, not the NPP resolution.
I think you could just do your part. I don't think it has to be. I know it's a little bit tangled, but really the key is getting it to SAB. That's where we can work on other groups, but I think you're really the only body there that's, I may be wrong. I'm not sure the other stakeholder groups are actively engaged the same way anyway, so.
Okay, well, so here's my ideal, and feel free to disagree with it. I would like to have SAB members, whether it's at a public meeting or at a work session, put together a presentation of the BOT of what we think should go to the BOT. And then bring that to you, and then work with John with that to present that to the BOT. In regards to just how the scorecard is invoked.
I
Does
like,
anybody else want to help me with that?
yeah, I can help you with that, Melody. I think I like that. And I just don't know. I know there has been some conflict, but I don't know where this board has been in direct conflict with the Board of Trustees. Like, we want to help them. Like, that's the whole goal, right? Like, so I don't see any controversy. I see this board's presentation and suggestions to be in alignment with what I understand of the Board of Trustees. And Ty, I would trust that like you would give us direct feedback, hopefully honest and abrupt and concise of yes, that's on in line, or no, like that's trash. Let's start again, you know? If you're comfortable doing that.
I mean, I always like a good plan and a good presentation to be, so everybody's clear, you know? I think, again, I mean, you know, like it's been said, this is a pretty old resolution and it's just kind of may have fallen by the wayside, but again, like I only became a BOT member last summer. I've never been involved in any of this kind of thing before. So again, I'm taking a lot of this in, you know, I like a lot of the ideas that are bouncing off the table. I do like the idea of you guys kind of getting together, writing something, passing it on to John, and then it turning into an aim. But in my head, that sounds great. It may not go over as easily with other BOT members. So as far as
Well-
that's concerned, I agree with you.
I do just want to state on the record that while I have heard a lot about from lots of different people that this has kind of gone by the wayside because it's so old, I would just like to clarify that we were absolutely using that process in 2021
Sure.
and in 2022 and in 2023.
Sure.
So
I think
just on the record.
it's not even that it doesn't align, the practice doesn't align to the resolution, and that's the problem. The practice and the resolution need to be aligned. If that happens, everything is fine.
Yep.
We'll do whatever. Staff doesn't care. We're gonna follow the policy that's set, but the board is gonna set the policy. That's all what I'm trying to say. And I think if you guys want to present and make recommendations about how that works, I think that's fine. Be prepared that they may not 100% align, and that's okay. That's the process, and we can make that work. But what I'm trying to do is just make sure that you're set up for success when we go there, so that we can present those goals and strategies in a way that is without conflict. Because I agree with Erica, there's not conflict here. There's a problem in the process and it needs to be fixed.
Well, and so that's why I mentioned maybe a work session before that is actually more privy. I just don't know if the BOT is open to that. And it was sounding like you wanted us to just go to the BOT and not do a BOT work session. on
So
this
I think we can. We just got to get it scheduled. And
Mhm.
if we can do that, the board has been very open about wanting to have work sessions and work on this stuff. So
Mhm.
I think it would be, I think it's just a matter of scheduling.
Yeah. Let's clean up that language so it's a little clearer. So we'll use
Well-
trigger that.
Are we having a work session? Or are we making a presentation for a BOT meeting?
Well-
Because those are two different preparations.
Well, I think he's giving you the
You
option
can
of
do either. You
deciding.
could do a discussion item where you just tell them, where you have a conversation with them at the meeting. You could have a separate work session where it's just that's in, you know, like an informal work session like this. We could also do it as an information item where you just present it, as this is something we'd like to do. So I really want to give you guys whatever you guys, however you want to handle that. I think a discussion item is the easiest and quickest to schedule where you can have that conversation. Work session will likely take a little bit of time just to get all the folks there, because you'd want to have your board represented and their board. And it's just another night of like figuring out when that could work. A discussion item we could do as soon as like April 15th, just depending on when you guys are ready. We could stick it on the agenda, and then you would come and it would be not like a public comment thing. You would be, or if you're on virtual, however you want to do that, but there would be the back and forth piece of that. And that's how we handled the DDA one. That was how we did that. And the discussion item can take, I mean, it's not going to take 3 hours, but it could take a more significant period of time.
Opinions? One or the other?
Jack, your note taker isn't on anymore.
What's that?
Your note taker
isn't on the meeting anymore.
It's okay, I've been taking minutes.
I know. I just wanted to let you know in case.
Failed.
I'm gonna ask us to summarize this whole discussion and action items before we move on to the next item, because
Yeah, I'm lost too. So
Oh.
that's why I'm trying to get clarification. What are our opinions on doing a work session versus discussion item at a BOT agenda? The BOT meeting.
John, what is the discussion item would be the fastest way to get this moving.
Mhm.
What is the relative time investment for either a work session? I don't think I've been to a BOT work session.
They don't happen frequently because it's difficult to schedule them with everybody because you have to have a quorum and you have
Okay.
to, there's other requirements. And so it's doable. It's just a matter of getting everyone on the same thing.
Okay.
And we'd have to just make that happen.
Well, and at the joint work sessions, I don't know that we've had a quorum of BOT members necessarily at them before. So I guess that's a question. Is it a SAB work session that BOT members are invited to, or is it BOT work session SAB members that are invited to? Because that's different requirements.
For quorum.
It's the same for the board because their quorum, you guys are in advisory capacity, but they have a different capacity. So it may have to be posted. I mean, it does need to be.
Well, yeah, if there's more than two of us, then it needs to be posted no matter what.
So I think it can be either then. It gets posted either way. Is that?
I'm just saying we wouldn't need to necessarily have all 7 BOT members or even 5 of them need to be there if it was a SAB work session that the BOT members that were super into saying something were able to come to.
I think what could happen, the other way it could be done, you could
Yeah.
do that and I could just present an aim from staff on what we're doing as an update to the board and that could be part of the thing. But I think the board needs to be able to have a discussion within their capacity. That's what I'm trying to accomplish. And I think the work session is a great way to do that. It could happen. One thing you could do in the discussion, you don't have to prepare a presentation. You could just come and say, hey, the scorecard, we're working on it kind of thing.
Understood. I feel like that's important for the history.
I'm comfortable. I guess the thing is the board needs to have a conversation in their official capacity at some point. But I could lead that conversation and in alignment to what you guys are doing and just say that there's this need to have a greater meeting about this. That would be another way to do it. So you can kind of work through your process and then they can just have that conversation.
I guess I'm hesitant about our recommendations to go through another person. Not that you won't give them in the right way. I'm just hesitant about that.
Right. I'm going to give the board advice.
Your recommendations,
Yeah,
absolutely.
right,
And
but it
then
can
we
be
have
yours.
our
Right.
recommendations as a board.
Right.
And I
Not
would
everyone
like
can be-
us as the board to present our recommendations to the BOT, not someone else present them for us. I guess it just doesn't make sense to have someone else present them for us. I feel like we should be doing.
So do you want to present those ideas to them or recommendations in a work session or in a discussion item? I think is the question.
I have already stated I would prefer a work session.
So,
I'm looking
do-
for everybody else to please give an opinion.
The truth
on
is, before you
that.
give opinions, the board sets their own agenda and they get to decide. So I have to bring this to them anyway. So I'm happy to take your direction here and tell them what you are looking for. But please understand that that is the mayor's job, is to put things on the agenda. And I'm sure he will put this on the agenda the way you asked for it.
Yep.
But that is something that I have to do.
So let's go around the room with the members of SAB
second.
and
Yes, can I ask a real quick question? So when I was on the board in the past, it was insanely hard to schedule a work session. I think we had one in 5 years. Has there been others, and when were they, and what's the frequency of work sessions with the BOT and boards right now?
I'm pretty sure I'm the only person who can answer that, but if you have an opinion, feel free.
I'll answer it
The
because
last time we did one was 2021.
there hasn't been a lot of work sessions between the board and other bodies. We've had basically one work session since I've been here, but there has been a desire expressed by the board to have work sessions. So it really just depends on scheduling it. That's what we need to do. And it probably likely will be difficult because everyone is working and, you know, it's another night meeting and all that kind of thing. But I think the board, this is important to them, and I'm sure we could figure this out to do it.
So I'd almost recommend that we just leave it open and say, we'd like to meet with the BOT and we'd like to do that sooner than later. We would prefer a work session, but we understand those are really difficult with schedules. And so if that proves to be more than a month or 2 months out, then we'd go for a discussion item at an existing BOT meeting. Does that work for folks?
I like that. I just don't want it to get brought to the BOT without us being there and being able to provide our input.
110%. Like, I'm right there with you.
Yep.
That's not appropriate. And I think that doesn't mirror the relationship that SAB has had with the BOT historically. So,
Yep. So we would like to then, other thoughts, Ty?
I mean, I think we personally should try, because the board has expressed, I've been there, about how we should have more work sessions. It may slow the process down a little bit, but I think all in all, it will align us more. So when it can get rewritten and come to an aim, it goes through a lot quicker. It's not gonna come back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. We have that work session. Yes, it may be struggle to schedule it with all of our lives. But again, we have expressed that we would like to have more work sessions. Because we don't feel like we're always in touch with all these other boards. So that's my recommendation.
Jeff?
I will offer the counter opinion. I think I have a slight preference for discussion point, because I think we can get feedback, and I think it would be quicker, easier to schedule, for expediency, basically. And I think we can convey the history of where we're coming from in that format. So, but not going to be a stickler on that, just expressing my opinion.
Yep.
I think both are acceptable.
I agree with Jeff in all respects.
Jack?
Jack.
That's it. You're kicked off.
That was close.
Is Tom still on? Tom, I know you're new, but if you have an opinion, feel free to state it.
I actually don't. I'm sorry. Normally I have opinions on most things, but I just don't know the nuances yet.
Yeah, fully understood. No problem. That sounded like half and half to me, 2 for discussion item or no,
Three,
Erica was
Erica.
3 for discussion item.
Or I think Erica was saying prefer a work session. Is that right, Erica?
yeah, with the understanding that it would take too long, so we're going to end up with a discussion item.
Okay.
is my forecast.
So like, if it's gonna take 2 months to schedule, you would prefer a discussion item.
Yeah.
Well,
And
if I
if-
talk to Billy and just see what it would look like to get a work session on the schedule, like how soon I can follow up.
Okay,
If I could just talk to Melody, maybe that might be the most, if you guys would give her the ability to decide which one, just depending on when the schedule would be. And then we just set it. Is that acceptable, or do you guys want to?
I think we should talk about it for another 20 minutes.
Okay.
I was like, stop it. I was here till 11 last night.
Yeah.
No.
Not do that.
Planning commission.
I think that's great. We should do that.
I think that's a good idea.
I would agree, Melody. You have the authority.
okay, I will send the decision to Cass because I can't email everybody.
Cool.
All right, so to wrap up and confirm our discussion, we are going to attempt to schedule a working session with the BOT to discuss the scorecard process and when it gets invoked. If they are not able to schedule a working session within a reasonable amount of time, we will instead move it to a discussion item at a BOT meeting, for which Eric and I will work together to prepare some sort of documents for them. presentation of sorts.
Melody. I'm gonna
Yeah.
be a little pain in the butt.
Yeah,
I think a work session just to talk about the scorecard makes any sense. I think it's going to be a much shorter and sweeter conversation than any of us expect. So I would propose that if we do get a work session, we add more topics like additionality, like goal setting, like we maximize BOT time and we add lots more to that work session as deemed appropriate.
I didn't say it.
I think we're putting the cart before the horse. And let's see if we can even do a work session before we think about adding other stuff to it. And that we end discussion on this topic and move on to our next agenda item.
Sounds great, Rich. I agree. John, will you just keep that in the back of your mind when you're talking work session with BOT?
Yeah, I think honestly, I kind of agree with you that it would be good to have a little bit of free flowing conversation. Just because you guys, your goals are, we want them to they need to understand what is important to you so that they can be in the right place. So I think maybe we could structure it where there's like a structured conversation about the resolution and then you guys can just you guys can, we'll figure it out. I think that we can do something like that.
Put in a general other as
Yeah.
a second discussion item that can kind of be all encompassing
That'd be-
for what comes up. I can support that. Okay. Do we have that did that, what I said, summarize everything properly? Okay.
Yeah, I really appreciate that.
All right, well, the last thing on our agenda is any other sustainability coordinator updates you got for us, Cass?
Yeah, so I can do this quickly. At the BOT meeting, the BOT appointed Chris Larson as the primary voting member for CC4CA, which also means that he will be attending those meetings. And it makes sense having a BOT member be that person because ultimately anything that you would be voting on at those meetings would need to go through the BOT anyway. So Chris can be that liaison. And then I'm the alternate basically if Chris cannot be there to vote. But I'll still be attending the meetings to be in the loop. Okay.
Can you send me the links for those meetings too? Cause I would still like to go to them.
Yes.
I know I can't vote, that's fine. But I would still like to go when I can.
Yeah, I will talk to Anita and have her send you the calendar invites so that I don't send you the wrong ones because I have
Wonderful.
multiple. So, okay. And then the other thing that I wanted to bring to your attention, and we're not going to talk about renewable energy percentages and solar gardens or anything else on this topic. We are just going to talk about this one thing, which is Switch Together is a program that we are participating in. We've participated in the past. It was called Solar Switch. And it's essentially group buying to get solar panels on people's homes at a discounted rate. And they have rounds during the year. So right now is the like spring summer round. And people have been like basically there's like mailers that have gone out to people, and if they want to sign up for the program, they have to do it by June 18th. We want to get more awareness out there about this. So one thing we can do is tablings. There is a Earth Day event that Wild Bear is putting on April 19th, which is a Saturday. And Switch Together is doing trainings for the tabling. So basically giving us information for what we can talk about at an event like the Wild Bear event, and tell people who are interested, like what they need to do, all the details and such. If you are interested, if any person is interested in helping me at that event, you would need to attend one of the trainings on April 2nd or April 8th, just to make my job easier so that I don't have to train and they can just do all of the training, and I will be attending the training as well. And then I also just wanted to generally say that if you have any other events that you think we should table at between April 2nd and June 18th, which is the time frame, just please email me that.
and we can try and figure out tabling. Is anyone interested on SAB for attending like half the event on April 19th?
Going once. Going twice. I see a finger from Jack.
I was just pulling up my,
It's a Saturday,
my
right?
commitment sketch spreadsheet.
And you can let me know as well, but the trainings are coming up soon.
Yeah, I can't do the training on the 2nd, but I could do the training on the 8th and then help you on the 19th.
Okay, cool.
Be a solo parent. And I got a bunch of,
100% of the time.
You have
Don't
one
use
kid.
that as an
I
excuse.
have one kid, and he can take care of, he's like working, what?
Is it the 2nd hour meeting? Zero waste?
April 2nd?
Yes.
Yeah, but the training is happening 6 to 7 p.m.
Oh,
I believe, so in the evening.
Where do I sign up for it?
So I added links onto that, so
Link in the-
so
Oh,
hopefully
I have to
it
scan
goes
QR
up.
code. Okay.
Oh, really?
It's always some, if you're on your computer.
What I have is a flyer and then a QR code to scan.
Okay, let me send you the links directly, but in the agenda, there should be links on where it says April 2nd RSVP. On like the most recent one I sent out, I like added them in after.
Oh, right. I'm using the one straight in the drive,
Gotcha.
so that's why.
Hey,
Yeah,
I'm doing training as well. I think I'm just gonna do half of the first one. And then I would be happy to help on the 19th if there's a time slot that needs support. So just let me
Okay.
know how that looks, please.
Yeah, if there's 3 of us, then that will be easy for divvying up time or, you know, overlapping a bit too.
yeah.
And
Yeah, I
then-
think overlap's always good.
I know Tanner had mentioned swag. I wonder, would you mind reaching out to him to see if he could get some swag items for that event? Because it's
Mhm.
after the training.
Yes, he did mention swag. You are correct. I will do that. But yeah, otherwise I think all my other updates were said.
The only event I can think of really is farmer's market. I know we run into limited space for informational stuff there, but it's worth exploring.
And do you think like enough people from the local area go to that event? Okay.
Yeah.
So it's worth, like, we were talking about that the other day of just
Or
like,
even maybe if it's too much to do it at a big market, do it on the off weeks when they're doing all the produce share pickups, because then you're absolutely gonna get.
that's true,
Yeah,
produce
yeah.
share pickup.
Yeah,
Okay.
the experience I had at the farmer's market with the multimodal was a lot of people were like, I don't actually live here. And I was like, that's okay. You could still give me
They-
opinions.
The locals tend to come in the morning.
Yes, yep, that's what I
And
noticed.
by 11 or so, they're out of there.
Yeah, and the farmer's market requires you stay the whole time.
Yeah, so another reason if
So
people,
those off weeks then.
yeah. So
Thank you for
that's a really
telling
good
me
point
about
though, because if you want to maybe help in the future at the farmer's market events so that I don't have to stay there all day,
Mhm.
then you should still do the training because that would help me. And
Yep.
then I don't know if they're gonna do trainings in the future.
Yeah. So if
Just
you have
saying.
time to attend a training on April 2nd or April 8th, even if you're not currently planning on helping us table, might be worthwhile to do it,
Yeah.
just so that you have that certification.
Cassie, I'll do the training and show up on the 19th as well.
You will? Oh, thank you. Awesome. Let's make things easy.
I think it became easier when we had more people show up. I was like, oh.
Yeah.
what time is the training?
6 to 7 p.m.
Where is it at?
It's all online. So
It was started.
I will send you the
All
link.
right,
Yes,
I'll
I'll
put the
just send
training.
out, I'll just email everybody the links.
I cannot help on the 19th, but
That's
Hey,
okay.
go to the
So.
wedding.
One
I'll
last.
tell you that.
Yeah.
So this is also a good opportunity to get other people engaged. So you don't have to be a SAB member to go through the training.
Yeah.
So if there's a volunteer list of folks that have shared their emails in the past, like Climate Together Ned or some of the other like solar efforts, it would be cool to forward this on to folks. So if each member forwards it on to a few folks in town, that might be interested, that would be fantastic. Because they also can be like, they can advertise in their neighborhood. Like they could go on Ridge Road or Magnolia or Caribou or Old Town or, you know, whatever.
Yeah, I can also include in this email that has the training links, the RSVPs, some of the materials for Switch Together. So if you know someone who might be interested, you can just give them the flyer. And then that's like a little more direct.
And we could also share it on the sustainability Facebook page if town's okay with us doing that. But you know, if you give me a little blurb, you know, and then I can post that flyer in a blurb and
Okay.
share it that way. I don't know where we're at on the legality of our SAB Facebook page, but that's okay. All right. Any other updates?
For me, no.
I can give you an update on the EV chargers.
Oh yeah, true.
Like, yeah, I think I had told you guys last time that I came during the holiday on that like snowstorm President's Day. Yeah. So we reached out to our original contractor that installed it. They sent us a switch, some fuses, and SIM card. We got it all up and running, went to test it. There seems to still be like some computer component that is not working. And so I asked them to meet with their team and come up with like worst possible things that could fall apart, send all the parts, let our contractor go with it, because we have to also call them and like work remotely. It's very annoying. And so they are scheduling, or they are kind of going through, okay, what could possibly be, and then they will send us all the parts and our contractor is going to give it another go. So I'm supposed to get an update from them, I think by tomorrow or beginning of the week. And then we will keep going. Thankfully, our contractor is willing to just like drop in on a day or two, and they've been amazing. And then I come in whenever they can't, but they've been helping me with the technical components because that is not my background. So I will have another update for you next meeting, and I'm hoping that it's up. But we are planning for if everything were to fall apart, I can go up. So I'm sorry it is still not up, but I'm telling you the effort has been there. I'm probably their most annoying client.
Did I just hear you are potentially doing the repairs yourself?
No, so I've been helping. We have a contractor, but I came up the day that everything was going on, and I've been like,
And then we always need a car.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, so if anyone knows people with EV cars that are in town, yeah, okay, cool. I know I will maybe be reaching out to both of you.
I can give you their cell phone number.
Yeah, are you guys okay with that? Okay. Yeah, because people have actually been taking the car share, which is great, but
Yeah.
I'm like, oh crap. I have a
That
car.
was
No,
So-
totally.
I know,
Okay,
I
cool.
saw it wasn't there and I was like, oh, did they take it?
No,
And then it
people's
was
been
back?
using it, so.
someone had it.
Is keeping it here.
Yeah.
They're originally gonna take it and then they,
Yeah.
we don't
Yeah.
know anything about how it's gonna work, but
We're not
they're-
paying for
Yeah,
it.
that's
Trying to do
awesome.
it, so.
But after
Yeah.
that whole press release and everything, it's like, okay, I
Yeah,
guess.
it's, we're not paying for it. They're just taking care of it.
Well, you know, that's the way you get people to jump on things. You tell them they're gonna lose it, right? And
Fair,
then,
fair.
Yeah.
Then everyone starts using it.
I know.
That is what happens. Some
But
people just
anyways,
don't-
I have not given up. I am literally email them every day. I mean, I literally spent hours. I was up at 5 a.m. that one day. So yeah, I am like so committed to this being
That's the
up
time.
for summer.
we appreciate it.
So I will have another update at your next meeting, and hopefully it'll be good. I think we mentioned it last time, but Partners in Energy, or one of the, I forget who it was, who could do the ribbon cutting.
Drive Clean Colorado.
Drive Crane. I will probably pursue that just because of the amount of time
Right?
and effort that has been put here. And I think it'd be
Yeah.
cool because half the community is like, why is this thing not working?
You should totally
So-
do, you should totally
Yes.
do ribbon cutting.
Yes.
Like cake and everything.
Yeah,
Just-
yeah, they're willing to like pay for it, so I'm all about it, just so the community knows. But I did, so we have to do grant data reporting for it
Yeah.
with the grant. And so I reached out to have a meeting because I was freaked out. And she said this is actually common among many towns right now. And so to not be stressed, they are not worried about like that the grant data portion has to extend. But it was nice for me to hear this. Yeah, it was nice to hear that like I'm not the only one going through this. So maybe we'll get better level 3 chargers produced moving forward, or they'll bump up the amount so we can get better quality. I don't know. So we'll see. We'll see, but I'll keep you updated. It has been the stressor of my life. So,
You usually don't get to deal with these maintenance issues until after it's been working for a little while.
Yeah.
Right? It's usually.
I know, we're
when the
gonna have a
warranty
brand new,
started.
yeah, we'll have a brand new. And the good thing is we still have, I think, 2 years within our extended warranty. So if things are to pop up over the next couple of years too, there will be. And we have a great contractor who knows very much, they install EV chargers on their own. And so we really have a great, like, they're not local as in the sense of Nederland, but they're just right down the hill. And they pop up whenever we need, which is amazing.
Got a contractor that's willing to drive up the hill.
Yes, yes,
Not an extra charge.
yeah.
All right. Wilder, any,
Sorry. Real quick,
yeah,
Brittany, who are you working with? And then are you all, is the EV rebates from Excel on your all's radar? I think the next wave is opening up in April.
Mhm.
It's quite a bit of money. I think it's like up to $1 million per entity. And it's
Yeah.
a for serve, so.
Are you asking who I'm working with in regards to the warranty or the contractor?
Contractor.
It is, his name is James Rio, but he goes by Jim, and it is AES EV charging.
Oh, they're so great. I'm glad
They're phenomenal.
yeah, they're
Phenomenal.
fantastic. Cool. Okay, that's great.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, thanks for the
Yeah.
one.
And yeah, and I do know about the Excel rebates. And I don't think they ended up applying for it, but I did share it with Tim from the library because they had expressed interest in putting in an EV
Yeah.
charger.
yeah, I think location for the next one is something that we haven't really figured out yet, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, the library was kind of like the first thing that came up, and we met with them because it's like infrastructure. They got to be able to have
Yeah.
the infrastructure to near, and it's got to make sense. And
The other thing we talked about, I don't know if you were at this meeting when we mentioned it, was the very beginning of Big Springs along the other side of the shopping center. Because that is town road and we do have the town easement. I just don't know what the power source is like there, but I know that there's a 3-phase guy right next to Carousel because we need it and BNF needs it for their freezer.
okay,
So
yeah,
that is a potential place to look.
that's good. I didn't think about that.
I think Rab
Also-
might have. I'm seeming to remember Rab looking at the, pulling up something and looking at the infrastructure, so
Mhm.
promising. Sorry.
SIBO was supportive in the past too with the BNF complex. And then also, God, the community center's been saying for years they don't want one, but at some point you might as well put one in. If you have to pull it out in 2 years, you still have an EV charger for 2 years. Like it's worth it.
Why are they saying they don't want one?
Because they were talking about redoing the parking lot.
Because of how much construction needs to go on here.
Fair enough.
Yeah, but the reality is you just move that stuff over. Like it's dirt. It's not like it's that much work to put it in, you know? And
Yeah,
especially
because
what's gonna pay
we
for
relocated the level 2.
You could do it, Erica.
And-
Well, I think another reason that this wasn't a priority location is how far it is from the downtown core. And that it would really only be used by the handful of locals that are up here at the community center, whereas like where they are in the visitor center parking lot, we've got all those tourists. We want to have those tourists with EVs come up here and have a place to charge. The community center is the best place for them to go. I'm not against it being here. That's what I remember.
Have you guys discussed, Jill Dreves has been talking about
She's
widening the
gonna
road.
get some up there.
She also wants to widen the road in front of it and create
Mhm.
parking area with more EV chargers
She
there.
Yeah.
she's not gonna put EV chargers in the Wild Bear parking lot. She wants
Just on the road thing.
she wants on the
He
road,
wants the
Okay.
town. to
but I
work with
don't
her.
think that she has.
Okay,
We would though,
I've done the tour and kind of been up there of that being a possibility, but I don't know that it's been anything we've talked about as like concrete plans.
Yeah.
So I guess we're aware, but no, we haven't directly talked about it.
You might be able to fit quite a bit of infrastructure right there. And she built brand new power too, so it can take the load.
Yep, and I think right there, if this shuttle works out, you know, that we're trying out this summer, and we have this shuttle system that can take people from there down to town, then it does make sense to have 12 chargers up there. But if we don't have that, I'd be hesitant about putting 12 chargers there because they're just not gonna get used, right?
Well,
So like mine.
At the turn off towards the elementary school, Indian Peaks, where the new Wild Bear is.
Okay,
I 12 level.
I don't know that they've ever done that.
No, there's no way you put 12.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's a.
Two
Would be 9:45.
I think we're talking about 6 for 12 cars. When I say
3
12,
hours.
I mean for 12 cars, but 6
Yeah.
chargers that charge 2.
I'll have to have
That's,
to be in the
sorry, I'm not
bylaws
trying to
I think so.
overblow it. I don't know what her actual number is, but
Okay.
just-
See if
I know it was a
That
lot.
would be
different.
our equivalent to
Yeah, 'cause I don't know,
168 houses.
like if you're required.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Or,
Yeah, that's a good
Cause like
question.
sometimes not even in my,
I mean, minimum.
but ours is either.
Oh, I'm so bad at math. Not even.
Yeah.
Anyway.
How many hot tubs is that?
Like something else. I'll ask.
Um,
I don't remember how many.
moving on.
Yes.
Wild Bear debrief, those who went to Wild Bear. Let us
Cool.
know your comments. What you think?
2 sentences max.
It's gonna be a great amenity for the town
I agree. I
and
didn't go there.
students, people driving by.
Yeah, some of my most memorable experiences as a kid are going to those cool like Discovery Science museums where you get to stick your hands and stuff and pet animal for feet, you know, and
Yeah.
do all that kind of stuff. So I'm real excited to be able to have that here. And I think the organization has done a wonderful job really diving into what does a net zero building look like and how do we achieve that at 8,500 feet. So I'm super excited.
Melody, I would just make a plug that whatever we can do to support the Wild Bear getting resources to becoming a resilience hub would be a really cool use of this board's time and energy. Because Jill is receptive, they just don't have the funds for it.
I'd totally be down to spend time helping with that. I think it's a matter of the BOT approving that we're spending our time on a private entity
I've
like
spent
that.
my time in there too. I think they'd support that. So, and I'd be happy to help you all too.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah. All right. Anything else on Wild Bear? I don't know if this is the latest draft, but I assume it's the latest draft, that I was sent of the BOT comments to Dreams.
Well, so
Uh,
it went through the water
I
attorney.
just got the water attorney comments today. And
Okay.
I've been out, but they're not substantively different and I can, they're in red line form, but we could talk about them here. I can
Okay.
bring them up.
So if we, you know, I know we did a lot of work on this already, but if we have further feedback on those comments, before they go directly to the Dreams, be sure to let, the BOT and or John know what our suggestions are for what they have so far.
The only changes from the attorney are really to protect the party status of the town essentially and to make sure that we're expressing direct impact. And so there's an additional comment in the background in regional context section that says, and long-term environmental challenges for communities near mining operations and sharing the same watershed. Cross Gold Mine is located upstream and just northwest of town. Coontrack Creek flows directly through the mining site before joining North Beaver Creek, which flows through town before joining Middle Boulder Creek and empties into Barker.
Yep.
In cooperation and in agreement with the city of Boulder, we store water in, release water from Barker as a critical component of operating our municipal water rights augmentation plan. Barker Reservoir is also a key water source for Boulder, thereby elevating regional concerns. Further road access to the mining site is limited and will likely require mine traffic using the town's main roads. The proposed expansion raises serious questions about the safeguards and adequacy to address these concerns and direct impacts to the town of Nederland's legally protected interests, particularly when compared to similar operations in our region. So all they're really
Yeah,
doing is
much
trying
better.
to more, yeah,
Well, it's this, there's a lot more specificity in there of exactly what is going on and why. And that's kind of was my suggestions too. I mean, of course, I don't have the perfect language that the lawyer does, but really getting into why and how could the mine possibly impact us by listing out this is where the water flows through.
In the procedural transparency and public notification section, and this is one I recommend you guys talk about a little bit. We have had some comments of people who are nervous to participate because they feel they have been dissuaded. And they feel it's not a good, they don't feel comfortable participating in the process. And so we are including those comments anonymously in our application. That does not hurt our application, but it does deny an anonymous comment status in the hearing. So what they said is the town is concerned some individuals in the community may have been dissuaded from participating openly in this process due to prior threatened legal action against the town and possibly other actions by the operator that has had a chilling effect on public participation. And that language, I think, is true. It may be something to just consider the rhetoric there a little bit and like make sure it's appropriate for what we need to say. But I think it is true that I have had probably 15 to 20 people say they're not comfortable. In emergency response, they added a line that says, at the end, it says, as the closest municipality, our emergency services and public works team must be informed and prepared to respond. They added, further, because of the climate, terrain, and proximity of the mine, the town is concerned about the fire risk posed by the expanded mine operations and the protocols it will have in place to address this increased risk. And there is some studies we were looking at that show increased risk of fire in mining areas just because of the type of operation. But it does say fire is not expressly contemplated by the Rule 8 for emergency plan. So it's maybe not the most pertinent. We did ask, they added language, we had asked to be a designated contact in an emergency response. And they also said that clear and comprehensive emergency response plans must be included in the application, getting at the point that the application is not complete. That's kind of like the gist of this, is that the application is not full. Road traffic study and impact to town. The most direct routes to the mine site use the main roads through town. The town is concerned that there may be an increase in heavy truck traffic from the proposed operations, which may require public roads to be substantially upgraded to support the mining operation. Increased traffic could also increase road maintenance costs for the town. And then the question, can the board commission an independent traffic study to assess the impact of public roads for mine traffic and whether upgrades are necessary to support the proposed operations? Defined timeline for decision-making. They also added in clear permit requirements. So it says final decision-making regarding the DMO conversion. And then they added permitting requirements and associated studies. This will ensure the public has adequate time to review findings, as well as ensure that any expanded mine can and does operate in accordance with its permit requirements, as well as state law and regulations. So just saying that we want to know what the requirements of their permit are, so we know if they're meeting them, essentially. In the question, they added any permit should clearly articulate the terms and conditions of the operation. On the environmental impact and water quality section, they took out the header for water quality, and then they added language. It says the expansion to over 205 acres increases the risk that any spill, treatment failure, or rock fracturing could have widespread impacts. New language, including to the hydraulic balance both during and after mining operations. In addition, the expanded operations may disturb local wildlife, including lynx, wolverine, bears, mountain lions, and disrupt critical life cycle events for moose and elk through potential light and noise pollution from underground blasting, and expose contaminated water supplies prior to or in the process of any treatment, among any other operational impacts. So again, just slightly more specific than our language was.
John, that's my favorite section. Can you read it again?
Yeah, it says, the expansion to over 205 acres increases the risk that any spill, treatment failure, or rock fracturing could have widespread impacts, including to the hydrologic balance both during and after mining operations. In addition, expanded operations may disturb local wildlife, including Canada lynx, wolverine, bears, mountain lions, and disrupt critical life cycle events for moose and elk through potential light and noise pollution from underground blasting. and exposed contaminated water supplies prior to or in the process of any treatment, among other operational impacts. They added additional language to the question, water impacts, and then they cross out on wildlife to verify the long-term reliability of the water treatment system and safeguard the surrounding ecosystem, including from impacts to local wildlife.
Okay.
This might be silly. I know we still have some lynx roaming around Colorado. But to my knowledge, we don't have wolverines.
Yeah, I was
They're
gonna worry
talking
about
about
that.
reintroducing them.
Sure.
No,
Well,
but-
no, I mean,
And
they've,
we're also talking about on a pass, a commonly used wildlife pass
Sure.
on the divide at 11,000 feet.
But-
Not here.
There's also the movie Red Dawn, where
I-
the Colorado kids are the Wolverines.
no, I get it. No, I get it. I'm just saying, I don't know.
I have no clue what that is.
What
They
if-
have been cited here,
Wolverines?
up there. Yes, they have been
I don't
cited
watch
on the trails in the Netherland area.
Wolverine?
Can you please share
My
that
goodness.
article with me?
I can tell you the person that I have talked to.
Okay.
Interesting.
I understand where you're going on that.
I'm just saying,
Yeah.
I just don't want them to be like nitpicky and be like, there's no fucking links.
Yeah,
Oh,
right.
These my links or Wolverines here.
So my comment on that section is it doesn't really address how extremely lacking their environmental plan is. They essentially don't have an environmental plan. Their environmental plan is, we're not gonna hurt anything.
You're right.
And so I would like to see more specificity in that section of there are no clearly established buffer zones. There are no guidelines for employees encountering wildlife. Some of those specific things we kind of pointed to in our notes. That's my suggestion.
I think that that's going to be like one of the big arguments is this whole application is missing that
Yeah.
specificity, and it should be improved upon for that reason.
Yep.
What on the adequacy of the water treatment facility or system, they added language quite a bit. They added water quality monitoring and reclamation plan to the header. And then they wrote hydrologic balance. The town is concerned that the proposed operations may result in increased disturbances to the hydrologic balance, including to surface and groundwater quality and to downstream water rights, including the town's. Water quality or quantity impacts could directly affect the town given its location downstream from the mine and could compromise the town's water supply as the town's augmentation plan relies on storage in and release from Barker Reservoir. Colorado law requires augmentation of water to be of sufficient quantity and quality, and that's CRS 3792-3055. Water quality impacts to the town and in Barker Reservoir could have significant and prohibitive impacts on the town of Nederland's legal right to divert and operate its water rights portfolio to provide a secure physical and legal municipal water supply to the town's residents. The town understands that in 2022, the Mine Land Reclamation Board found the mine failed to minimize disturbances to the prevailing hydrologic balance of the affected land and surrounded areas and to the quality of water and surface systems. Further, in 2024, the mine operator entered into compliance order on consent to resolve water quality permit violations for the discharge permit issued to the mine, CDPS permit number C00000032751, cited by Colorado Department of Public Health and Environment Water Quality Control Division. The town is concerned whether the water control and treatment plants, as well as ground and surface water monitoring, are sufficient to ensure there are no negative impacts to hydrologic balance from the expanded operations during the life of the mine, and if the reclamation plan is adequate, and that perpetual water treatment will not be required post-mining. You remember in the application, it says the water treatment ends at the end of mining operations. And so that,
Because again,
yeah.
their plan is,
Right.
we're not gonna hurt anything.
John, I've changed my mind. That's my new favorite section.
I like the specificity there.
Yeah, well, I just,
Because ours was, the original draft was like, can we get some more clear test
Yes.
results on what's going on? And my feedback was like, well, if you read the 600 pages that's in there, it's just a matter of more clearly, as they have done, explaining why that's bad.
there was another comment I just want to bring up to you. We were talking about the alluvial water, and there's a lot of people on Caribou that have wells, right?
Yep.
right,
If there's impacts to wells and those people can't use their wells anymore,
Yep.
the most logical place where they get the water is from the town. We know infrastructure is so expensive, and that's probably what would happen is we'd have to serve those people and there'd be a cost probably to the town. But I think it might be becoming a little bit of a nebulous argument about whether or not that's like an actual impact right now, or if that's just like chicken little kind of like, what
Yeah.
if kind of situation.
But these are artesian wells,
Yeah.
right? And artesian well, I mean, I'm assuming they're artesian. And artesian wells generally will take their water from far upstream. Far up the hill. And it sort of comes down through and downhill into that artesian well. And often they're really deep. Like I used to have an artesian well. I think my well was like 700 feet deep. And it was you're bailing, right? So it's sort of a similar sort of landscape.
Mhm.
So who knows what the actual, it's not like it's this little aquifer right under the house. Right.
No,
Yeah.
because even when you drill here and then you drill 50 feet over here, you could have totally different
Yeah.
water qualities, right? And
Do you think they should be required to have a testing program for people who have wells within X feet of that? And again, that's maybe not something for us to say. Maybe it's a Boulder County thing.
I don't know if we can go that far, but I would like to see the mine have a better understanding of the hydrology than what they present in the application. Because what they present is these are general water hydrologic characteristics, and we have not fully studied this specific site.
Okay,
And so maybe asking them to study this specific site and understand how that water moves better would be something,
okay.
if that makes sense.
I can add a question about that to this section, I think makes sense. Okay.
I felt like personally going rogue and just posting letters on every single person's door on Caribou. Hey, did you know this is happening? Here's my comments.
Well, I do know somebody on Caribou and
Oh, Maggie's going all at it. I'm super happy about that.
well, Emily's going nuts.
Okay.
So,
Maggie's Hendrick's daughter.
yeah. Oh, I saw her comment on Facebook.
Oh, I saw that as well.
Yeah.
So in post-closure financial accountability and oversight, this is another big change. The town questions whether the reclamation costs provided with the application materials are up to date, account for significant recent inflation, and are adequate to cover post-closure costs. And I think that's a really big one for us.
Yeah.
And then the question is just, can they confirm that financial assurances have been independently reviewed and adequacy and worst case kind of environmental operating conditions?
Yep.
In the conclusion, there's a little bit of different language. It says, given the greatly expanded footprint of the Cross Gold Mine and the potential for significant environmental, technical, and social economic impacts, as demonstrated by historical cases in Clear Creek County and Gilpin County, we respectfully request that the town of Nederland be given party status. That's the other really big one, is they told us we should like most specifically ask for that. And that the board schedule a public hearing prior to any permit decision to address the town of Nederland's concerns and direct impacts to the town of Nederland's legally protected interests as identified in this letter. So that was their big recommendation, is that we need to be explicit in that ask.
Yeah.
They told me they think that the structure addressing the criteria is good, and that the way that we've expressed concerns and like asked for more information, kind of getting at the idea that the application is not complete and we don't have enough information for them to approve an application at this point, is likely the most effective strategy for this. And based on what the application materials are, that seems supported by the materials. So what I would really like to do, I would, given changes you guys might have, I'd like to submit it tomorrow if possible, just so we're in advance of the deadline and I can confirm with the mining guy that it is actually in the record. And so that's kind of what I'd like to do, if you guys are comfortable with that.
Yes.
Is everyone saying yes?
Yeah.
Okay, there's a couple minor changes we talked about. I can add those. Is there anything else that we want to talk about, or?
I'm just looking through my notes here. We referenced can't say the words too late, vulnerable populations. What do we mean by that?
I think what that could be I think the intention is like neighbors who are nearby who may not have the resources to understand what's happening. It may not be.
Yes, and so in my mind, that is the many houses on Caribou Road that are not connected to electricity, not connected to well water. They are low income places that people rent.
Should we change that?
And that's kind of what we were talking about,
We
right?
change that language to just neighbor, like something neighbor oriented.
Jack.
Like,
It's probably better because vulnerable populations has a clear kind of socially clear construct of what that means. That typically means like racially disadvantaged or economically disadvantaged or,
Yeah, it's a poor argument for this situation, probably.
yeah.
I understand.
Would this be a good time? Any day. I gotta get back to my house.
Oh, yeah,
okay.
you're fine.
Yeah.
Yeah. No worries about
Yeah.
Yeah.
Come back.
Thanks for staying.
It's like being in a episode of The Big Bang Theory. It's awesome.
Yay! I love it.
Yeah.
That's the best compliment I got all day.
Oh, man.
Can I say justice and nearby or community members, or what do you think the best word is? Neighbors or community members or homes or nearby residents?
Residents.
Okay.
Yeah. Another thing on the environmental impact and wildlife, they directly state they are not gonna consult CPW. All they need to do is look at the website. And so I think that and the fact that they don't outline buffer zones are two specific things that we can point to of like, that's very lacking. Those are basic things that you guys could be doing for the environment.
We could also potentially add language to this, and we I discussed this with them briefly about something to the effect of Barker Reservoir that's probably the biggest threat to the community, and that's the city of Boulder's water source. That's 2/3 of their water. And because it's such an important regional concern, we're elevating their comments and want to make sure that those comments are that we're reflecting their comments, because they're gonna have other ones than us, and that way, like,
Yeah.
but if I could add that too, something to that effect. And I've talked to Boulder a little bit about that, so they're comfortable with that.
Yeah. And then did we put forth a specific ask for more stringent monitoring of water than what is proposed, or did we word that differently?
I thought we asked for downstream, more than one point of downstream monitoring. That was the intention, at least.
Go back to my laptop died.
I'm gonna scoot. I still have to scan stuff at town hall.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
good to see you all. I'm sorry, I still have to pick up some plats to get signed.
Thanks for coming.
Yeah, sorry, I'm
No,
gonna
don't
end up
apologize.
being here till 11 again. And
Yeah,
I need to
it's
go
just
scan
gonna-
those. Yeah, I know. I
Trying to
really need
avoid
scan
that.
those. And I have heard so much about the cross mine and I trust you.
We said.
Yep, there you go, there you go.
Emergency
See ya.
programs exist to address potential system failures, and have these measures been independently
Oh.
evaluated?
I'm talking about waterfall.
I think that's what they were talking about. We had it different, and they changed it, but I can change it back.
Gotta pee.
I don't need, what do
We were
we have
talking
right now
about
for water quality
the-
last?
Specific language on the, cross.
Mine letter,
Okay.
still going through just going through it, all the language.
The town is concerned whether the water control and treatment plans, as well as ground and surface water monitoring, are sufficient to ensure there are no negative impacts to hydraulic balance from the expanded operations during the life of the mine, and that the reclamation plan is adequate, and that perpetual water treatment will not be required post-mining.
Okay, so kind of, I think we mostly address what I'm getting at.
Do you want me to make that a little more explicit?
I guess before we make it more explicit, I'm trying to get clear, are we asking for the state to make sure that the mine is doing the water quality measures that they are mandated to by CDPHE, or are we asking them to go above and beyond? I think that's where I'm a little confused of what we're actually asking for it, so I want that to be clearer.
The DMO process requires a higher level of water quality monitoring, I think that.
Yep.
Okay,
So the process they're going through is already gonna require more stringent monitoring. So are we asking for even more stringent monitoring than that? Cause like, for example, their application said that they will routinely test water. But it doesn't say every 2 weeks, every month, etc. I don't know what the DRMS is requiring of them, but if their requirement is once a quarter testing, we want more than once a quarter testing, and we want to be asking for more testing than what is required, right?
All we're really,
That's kind of where I'm getting at.
we're saying that we're concerned their plan is not adequate, I guess, is what this says now. So do we want to like,
I don't think we need to be clearer.
Okay.
It's definitely way better than it was. It at least gets at that. I was just trying to get more of a sense of what are we asking for?
When are you doing it? Oh, sorry.
You know, are we asking for them to be a little bit stricter than they normally would because we're 2.3 miles and not 2 miles away? You know, or are we saying, no, your guys' standards are fine, they're just clearly not meeting those standards? Those are two different feedbacks, right? So I'm just trying to get clear on my mind of what we think we're going for with that. I would suggest we go for more stringent monitoring. That's what I'm gonna be writing in mind, but that's my personal opinion.
I don't think that's bad. I mean, we could.
Yeah.
It's-
I just don't know what the BOT feels comfortable with doing, what the lawyer feels comfortable
said
with
what-
doing, et cetera.
They want to make sure we
That's
got
why
the direction, any feedback we can. We have they said whatever we think makes it stronger is what the direction was.
Okay,
I'm comfortable adding that because I think at minimum downstream monitoring too needs to happen. Like
Yeah.
constant, and they do that on I-70 right now. They have like constant monitors that you can like log into and see. So I think that's not even unreasonable.
yeah, definitely. Okay, cool. That was the last comment I had in mind.
Are you guys all generally comfortable with me making these changes and just submitting?
Yeah,
I think so.
yeah.
I think the other
Make sure
thing
it
is-
gets in.
We'll have, as soon as I know if we get party status, if that hearing's gonna happen, then I need to bring that back to you, and then there would be a potential to hire an expert to represent us in the hearing, and I think that's something we'd want to think about.
Yes, I would be in support of working with Boulder County and Boulder City together on hiring experts. Cause I don't think we have the bandwidth nor the funds to do that on our own.
Yeah, that's huge.
Um,
Yeah, I'd want to know what they're doing.
and maybe Tom, our new sustainability member, you know, who has some understanding of water law and environmental law, has some good things to weigh in with too.
He's not on the meeting anymore.
That's fine. I'm just saying,
But yeah,
I'm just referencing for John. He did say he worked in water law and environmental law.
He
so
did.
That's a
Yeah.
good resource.
I didn't know that you had geologic background too, Kat. That's cool.
yeah.
School of Mines.
Yeah, perfect. I guess I did know that, but
It's
Yeah.
one of those
Because
things
if
where
I
you see
didn't-
School of Mines
Yeah.
and you're like, engineer, man.
Yeah.
But specifically geological.
We adjourn. Danny.
I'm standing up because I can't sit anymore, but I think we're about there. This was the last thing on the agenda unless anyone has anything else.
Then I move we adjourn.
Second.
Any objections?
Yeah.
All right, without objection, we're adjourned.
If you
Uh,
you have to say the time.
Not
Ah.
adjourn.
9:42.
Yeah.
If you lose quorum, can you?
just for you.
What's that?
Thank you,
We
Eric.
still have 5 people, but
I don't know.
that's a good
I have a
point.
legal
Should
question.
pro- Thank you. We should probably
Information.
Those are.
adjourn
I
before we lose
downloaded-
quorum.
In 1972.
nice.
USGS topographic
Good
map
night, Erica. Thanks.
for this area, and it
Yeah.
includes Caribou, and includes
Yeah.
every mine shaft and mine tunnel
Yeah.
in this area. And